Welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's episode was recorded on June the 18th, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, taking us on a cooking tangent,
Caffeine Rage.
On today's show, we will of course be discussing the games we have played over the last couple of weeks. We're going to have a quick detour to talk about Microsoft's PC Game Pass. Mobile games are losing to video in the battle for users' time. 83% of gamers potentially are interested in streaming services. Sqaure Enix has no idea how many parts Final Fantasy VII Remake will have. We'll have our weekly community corner with something submitted by Jim3535 that he thought was interesting from E3. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm alright. Had a bit of a computer misadventure today, but...
Yeah, you teased me with the story 15 minutes ago, so...
And you've been trying
to
figure out what it is, right?
Well, I did for a minute, and then you started talking about cooking stuff, and we talked about things that Amazon tried to sell us that we had already purchased, so I got a little sidetracked. But now I'm excited to hear the story.
Okay, so I had some time to kill today while I waited for UPS, speaking of Amazon, to drop off something for me. And I was wanting to ship back a box and not have to go, a good half an hour on my way the next time I'm in town to be able to do so. So, I was sitting there camping the UPS guy, like he was a spawn in World of Warcraft, right?
Right. Okay.
So, while I was sitting there, I was sitting at my window, which is next to the window in my living room and next to my computer, and I was thinking, it's been a while since I cleaned this. So I pulled the top filter off, and it was only slightly filthy. I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I decided, I'll get out the compressed air while I'm waiting, and I won't take it outside because it's been raining on and off, so I don't want to, get caught in the rain with my computer, right?
Right.
But I'll at least knock some of the dust out of it and, vacuum it up. So, take the compressed air, spray the insides, knock a good chunk of the dust off. Take the fan off the CPU cooler, give that a good blast, because the way my CPU cooler is set up, that it has a fan that pushes the air through it, and it could get a little bit caked on between the fan and the CPU cooler. Ran the vacuum, cleaned off the side, cleaned the top filter, cleaned the bottom filter that's under the power supply, and put it back together and didn't really think much about it. Continued to camp out at UPS while chattering away on my phone and just waiting and waiting and waiting. So UPS shows up, I hand off my package, I get my box of socks, and no, I'm not joking, I bought socks, and that makes you smile, right?
Indeed. I approve of your sock purchase.
And turn on the computer and go into the kitchen to go grab a quick bite because, I was sitting there for a few hours waiting and, I didn't really think anything of it. Well, I poked around online for a bit, decided to fire Forza, and I noticed my FPS was way down and I was getting some thermal throttling. And I thought, did I screw up something in the computer? And, I felt behind the computer where the air comes out of it, and it was scorching hot. I thought, oh, that's not good. Quickly shut down everything, and I pull off the side case. Care to guess what I did?
Left something in it.
No. I put everything back correctly. Or semi-correctly. What I did...
Did you unplug the fan
by
accident?
No. This is even better, all right? The way my CPU cooler is set up is that the fan snaps onto it, all right? Well,
all right.
As long as it snaps on, it's facing the right direction. Well, I rotated the fan 180 degrees, sorry. So that instead of the wires kind of going down to the bottom and looping back up onto the motherboards to plug into the power supply, they were hanging around the top, and the giant-ass fan on the top of the computer sucked up the wires.
Oh.
and because I turned on the computer and I left it, it took a few seconds for that fan to kick on and come up to speed. It got him, and it kind of stuck. It didn't break anything, thankfully, and the CPU fan was still running, but it was cutting a major portion of the air supply being drawn up through the bottom of the computer and ejecting heat. So
yeah,
I opened up the side. It's just like, okay, did I unplug the CPU? Oh, it had grabbed it and twisted it and twisted and twisted. And you know how whenever you take on and off your headset too many times, and it gets that kink in it that doubles back on itself. That twist.
Yeah,
it was like that up into the top of the computer and around the blade of the fan and back down. And thankfully, the fan wasn't damaged as well, and it was kind of chilling out there because it was a low RPM fan, but it just draws a lot of air just by sheer size of it. But it's like, oh, and then I realized what I did. Oh, so yeah, I took the computer apart twice today.
Nice.
Oh, it was just one of those things, right? Thankfully, I didn't break anything. But yeah, that was a dumb moment.
It happens. I had something similar happen once. My CPU fan grabbed, I don't remember, a loose, a cable that came loose from my management back when I used to be way worse about actually managing cables properly. Was it, zip ties and routing things properly and all that jazz.
Oh, the backside of the motherboard looks like a spaghetti factory, or like I threw spaghetti on the side of the case, but.
Yeah, I mean, mine's not beautiful, but it's functional, But I turned on my computer, and I heard, and it was touching the fan, and it, the fan was spinning on the cable, and then it grabbed it, and it just stopped everything. Thankfully it didn't break the CPU fan, although I had a replacement at the time, but it didn't break it. Well, so I just turned it off and pulled it apart and managed my cables better.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the second CPU fan this computer's had. The first one actually seized on me, which was, all sorts of fun.
Yeah.
Just, right out of the blue. But yeah, it's just, I thought it was, a good enough story to at least talk about.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. I see that you have not yet, unless you just did it. Copied your games into the list. So would you like me to start while you do that?
Oh, sorry, I completely forgot about that because we got chattering away. Yeah, you get. Do we want to go back and forth on the Xbox Game Pass as a whole first?
I figured we would do it maybe last, because I assume we'll talk about Forza at the same time.
All right,
at the end. So yeah, I had 3 games this week. First on my list is Plague Inc. So we've talked about Pandemic a couple of times in the last few weeks. And this is kind of the opposite of that. You play as an evolving disease. There's a bunch of different kinds of diseases. You bacteria, virus, fungus. There's some more sort of exotic stuff like a prion, which is something that evolves within the brain. There's a parasite, and then there's a few other things too. They have some fun, zombies. They've got the virus from Planet of the Apes.
Which actually changes the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, both of those change the game, because then there's military resistance you have to deal with on top of, the normal searching for a cure for the disease and things like that. But each of the different ones changes the game to some extent. For all of the sort of regular or standard disease types, they each have pros and cons. For example, the virus mutates random symptoms rapidly, so you won't have to necessarily spend a lot of your own DNA points that you get from infecting people on your disease, but it could wind up becoming really lethal really early, which means that you could either kill off everyone infected before you get the world, or you make it scary enough that they research the planet researches a cure really quickly. And that's the goal. Like, whichever disease type you pick, you have to wipe out every last single human being on the planet. There's a bunch of different strategies for it, and as the difficulty level rises, you have to sort of take on sort of a hybrid strategy. For the most part, on normal, you can just lay low, make your disease really infectious, but don't give it any deadly symptoms that make it so that it's very unlikely to be noticed. Infect all or most of the world's population, and then sort of flip the switch and start evolving your disease to have very deadly symptoms like tumors, organ failure, things like that kill people rapidly. You wipe out the planet. But as difficulty increases, your disease is much more likely to be noticed, even if you start in a third world country and don't have any noticeable symptoms, like no fever, no rash, no anything like that helps to increase infectivity. So you have to kind of kill as you go. Very difficult. But, I mean, the game is a lot of fun. It's fairly simple. I'm playing it on my phone. You can get it for, I believe, console and I think also on PC somewhere.
Yeah, it's on
Steam.
Steam.
It's on Steam or not. Okay. Yeah. The mobile version, you can download it for free, and you sort of unlock things via progression. So you start as a bacteria, then you unlock virus, then fungus, and so on, and you have to win a normal difficulty game to unlock the next disease
or just
type.
pay to unlock everything.
You can also pay to unlock everything. There's challenges, so you get a specific set of circumstances, and some things make it easier, some make it harder, some sort of do a little bit of both. For example, their most recent update included the anti-vax movement and like science deniers. So you have a much easier chance, or I think it's research takes a penalty if you play in that one. So it sort of helps you out. But then there's ones that make it where the researchers are like super smart, or there's one where that it's like all borders are closed. There's one that makes it so starting your disease in certain countries is more difficult than others. For example, it's really hard to start in a first world country with high quality healthcare. Like most European countries, Australia, Canada, have a hard time starting with a disease there because it's hard to infect new people because generally they're healthier and those places have healthcare. But on the flip side, starting your disease out in, like Bolivia or somewhere in Africa, it can also be difficult because of poor healthcare and things like that. Your people might die faster. So you have to pick sort of the right area to start. In certain scenarios, change conditions that make it more advantageous.
Well, simple. You pick the United States so that you can pick on a lot of poor people.
The United States is listed as having high-quality health care, but it
well, if you're rich enough.
If you're rich enough, it does, yeah. But sort of the best places to start are either India or China. You have access to a huge continent with roughly half of the world's population on the Asian and European continent, and you can get most of those people via land transmission. You can have your disease, for example, migrate through birds or livestock, insects, things like that. Like these are all things that you can kind of evolve it into. You get points for infecting people. Occasionally you get random points just out of the blue. They're just called like DNA point boosts. And you get those sometimes. They're your main source of DNA points at the beginning of the game. But once you start infecting people, your DNA levels skyrocket, and you can sort of craft your disease however you want it to be. Like I said, viruses have like a really high chance of mutating. I believe it's fungus has a very low chance of mutating. But each of the diseases have their pros and cons. It's a very fun game. There's lots of fun little references to stuff in there. Some of them are pretty dated at this point. Like there's a joke that makes fun of Notch selling Minecraft to Microsoft, and that's from several years ago.
Yeah.
It's like Swedish miner rescued by Microsoft or something like that. Swedish man rescued from mine by Microsoft with piles of cash or something like that. There's other jokes. There's stuff that pokes at Brexit in there. There's references to some other games. For example, the Rio Olympics, which I can't remember what game it was, but it's a PlayStation, maybe it was on PC too, but it's a zombie game that's come out in the last few years that happens at the Rio Olympics. There's a reference to that. There's some other stuff in there too. But it's just generally a lot of fun. It's not very expensive to buy the whole, like, everything on mobile. It's something like, I want to say like $10 and you get everything. And you can't get all of the challenges if you play it for free. It only gives you access to, like, I think 7 or 8 challenges. But you can unlock all of the diseases as you play.
Wow, there's a lot of crappy Flash and mobile games there. Zombies at the Rio Olympics. Some of these are obviously just rip-offs of Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah.
Some looks like they're even grabbing the sprite art, which is a big no-no.
There's fun little achievements you can get to. Like, there's that it typically references to things. Like, there's one called The Walking Dead, and it's if you get, what is it? Insomnia plus brain hemorrhaging or something like that. And if you are able to unlock those achievements, even, re-unlocking them while you're playing, and you get, like, bonuses. Like, that one really limits research progression for the cure. But it's a lot of fun. It can definitely feel very morbid at times, though. Like, they have this they added, like, these little kids singing, like, Ring Around the Rosie in a very, like, I don't know, creepy way. It's hard to quite explain. But, the first time I heard that, because I didn't remember that from before. I'm sure it was there, but I didn't remember it from before. And I was actually playing with headphones. And I was like, Ring Around the Rosie. And I'm like, oh my fuck, what? Oh, Jesus. There's a few, speaking of that, like, that song has to do with, like, the Black Plague. That's one of the scenarios.
There's some people that say that's a myth. Some that I've seen it actually reported both ways online. That it's a myth, and then there's some people saying that, oh no, it really was about the Black Plague or the Black Death. And it's sort of like Einstein quotes. Everybody quotes Einstein, even though he never said that.
Yeah,
but it still spreads because Einstein.
That's fair. That's one of those things I've heard, like, my whole life, but that doesn't mean that it's, couldn't have been one of those urban legend myth things that has been created. And I bet if you Googled it, you would find someone that debunked it, and then someone that also proved it.
Yeah.
But regardless, like, I think at least in popular culture, most people would be able to associate those two things, Ring Around the Rosie and the Black Plague. And so, like, but regardless, hearing it is like, oh, sweet baby Jesus, this is creepy. And then after a couple of times, it just kind of gets annoying, honestly. But that first time, it got me.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia, which I know that's not a good source, urban legend says that it is about the plague, specifically the Great Plague of London, not the Black Death, or a particular portion of the Black Death. Sorry, but folklorists reject this idea and then substitute it with their own.
Nice. Good pull there. But yeah, so that's Plague Inc. Fun game. Definitely worth a play or a try if you've never played it before.
So should I go with my first one and give you a break, or do you want to go your second one and have a break?
I don't care.
Let's go with your second one, and then you can have a break, because I imagine we'll have a lot of back and forth on on our last ones.
Yeah. Okay, so I played Mercury Fallen this week as well. This game, we have both played it before, but, it's an early access game.
Yeah, and I played it a lot earlier, so I haven't actually gone back to it yet.
Yeah, so I went back to it this past week. They've changed a bunch of things. The general flow of the game is still the same. It's still sort of, you set stuff, you give people roles, they go and do them based on their priorities. The two big things that they've changed that I've really noticed, well, the three big things. that they've changed that I've noticed is number one, the starting, or really the colonist management is different. So you start with colonists and a robot with random stats. I started several games just to see what the spread was, and you always get somebody, at least one person between your 3 colonists and robot. So at least one of them can do building, and one of them can do mining, and one of them can do crafting. But it's kind of hit or miss. Oh, and one of them can always grow food. But it's kind of hit or miss because sometimes you get to start with several people who can do mining. So your initial progression when you're first expanding and collecting things can go faster. Or maybe you only get one person who can haul. Or maybe the same person that is, the only person you have that can mine is also the only person you have that can haul. Like, those kinds of starts could be frustrating. It would definitely make it much more difficult to progress, because then you wind up with shit littered all over the place. And the engineer, for example, which is the crafter person, can still go and get those things, but it wastes a lot of time, and then that wastes other resources like food. And
yeah,
stuff like
especially
that. So,
at the beginning of a colony management game like this.
Yeah.
Later on, as you hit a certain point, usually with these sort of games, you get kind of this point where it's not as important to micromanage everything and get the flow down correctly. But early on, it's very important.
Yeah, and I like the previous system. I mean, everyone's stats still exist, but in the previous system, everybody could do everything, and just certain people with better stats would be better at doing stuff. But now, you have to have your stats at a certain level before you can even do stuff. So
I'm not sure if I like that.
It's really weird. I had one of my starts where the same guy who was the miner was also the only hauler, but his movement stat was really low. He just happened to have enough strength or something to actually qualify as a hauler. So he was actually the worst person to haul stuff because he was the slowest.
But he was the only one that was able to.
But he was the only one that could, because he was the only one that his strength stat was high enough, or whichever the stat is that does hauling. I don't remember exactly. There's strength, athletics, and something else.
Yeah, there's
intelligence.
There's a mod for RimWorld that I think is the way I prefer it to handle this sort of thing. It's called Everyone's Capable, because most of the building colony management genre, it follows that sort of thing where if you're not above a certain threshold, either you cannot do it, or the person just flat out refuses it if it's not stat based. It's like a trait based thing. Well,
yeah.
The mod that I pretty much always run from RimWorld, it makes it so that it changes from can't to hate. So if you force them to do it, they'll do it, but it starts inflicting a stacking mood debuff. So it makes it very likely that they'll flip out if you keep forcing them to do something. So it enables the ability to, in case of an emergency, have the person that, absolutely hates doctoring to, go patch up your good doctor. But he'll be grumpy about it.
Yeah.
And also because, he hated that, he likely is very unskilled on it. But it's better than having someone bleed out. Or, having someone that is, that hates hauling, go do some hauling, and they'll just grumble about it. And if you keep them doing it, they'll eventually have a mental break, which can be rather bad. Because it stacks so quickly, it's pretty much always a catastrophic break, which is in the range of they completely snap and they turn into a wild man, or they go start punching people, or they decide to just, fuck the crafting room in particular and go break everything in it.
Cool. I guess. I wish that everyone could haul. It's stupid to me that they can't, because everyone has inventory. And everyone's inventory is more than whatever it takes to haul stuff. If you're going to engineer to the machines to do it. I think that crafting, everyone, or not crafting, hauling, everyone should be able to do that. And just if you have a low speed stat, you walk a little slower, whatever. But also now everyone can only have 3 tasks that they're set up to do. Whereas before, everything was on a hierarchy. Ooh. And you would set some stuff to really high priority and some stuff to lower. But now everybody can only do 3 tasks.
Oh, I
So
really don't like that.
You have to do more micromanagement always, because even when you get a later colony, you need to make sure you have several people that are doing just generally everything. So you have to set everyone up. I mean, once you do, you can just leave it be, but you still have to check everyone every time you get someone new. So those 2 things I think were poor. I'm okay with the random stat start. That's fine. But otherwise,
is it possible to re-roll without completely restarting the game?
No.
See,
you have to
like
start a new game every time. There is equipment now that can boost their stats, and you get a few small pieces of starting equipment. So with your people, your initial colony, you can give them equipment to boost their stats and sort of make them a little more versatile.
Sort of like an exoskeleton that boosts strength, for example, right?
Yeah, exactly. But even that, sometimes if you get a really bad roll, that's not enough. And so it's like, well, I could, I guess, give it to the one guy to make him even stronger, but I don't need to do that. There's better equipment you can research later that gives larger boosts, but, and that's something actually in general, you can get equipment for everything that does different stuff. Like you can get equipment that boosts power generator output or efficiency for fuel use. You can get things that boost efficiency for each of the crafting machines. The water pumps, you can get mods that make them pump water faster, or you can increase the chance that you get like double items off of a production, or reduce the chance of failing a crafting attempt, things like that you can plug into all the machines. But, I mean, that stuff's neat. It's a good little addition, but, that hasn't really changed too much, crafting and setting up the stuff to your different crafting runs and things. They changed the research system around a little bit. They basically broke it out more and made most of the categories smaller. Like, there's also a couple of things that it makes you research first that gives you access to all of the basic stuff a lot faster. So you don't have to pick and choose, like, well, I mean, this thing over here needs water, but in order to actually get water, I have to research, like, this thing down here. But then in order to get, like, because it was a really weird web initially. But now there's, like, 2...
Yeah, if I recall correctly, you didn't get food generation for quite a while. So everybody was eating raw potatoes like Matt Damon.
Yeah, but now you can, there's, I think, 2 things that you have to research first before you can research everything else. And that gives you all the basic stuff. Access to water and food and power production and, like, all the basic equipment and materials. So then after that, the tree's still a little bit spread out. And there's some of that, X is dependent on Y. But it's not quite as bad because you have all the basic stuff a lot faster. And then they've added surface exploration and mining. So there's a new research branch that has to do with surface vessels or surface craft. They're all drones, so you don't send any humans topside. But there's 2 different exploration and 2 different mining drones. And it's basically a hover version and a wheeled or a tracked version. And they each have pros and cons. The hover versions are faster. They can go across water, so you can explore the map a lot faster. You can get to certain resources that are, for example, like on an island in the middle of a lake or the ocean. But they have smaller carrying capacities. And the hover, like, scout drone has worse sensor equipment. So the one on wheels can scan faster and see farther. But those are really nice. They've added additional resources that you have to mine. Some things can only be gathered from the surface, and then some of the stuff that you get from below, which you can run out of. If you mine the entire map, then you'll run out of resources. You can now get all of those from the surface. So eventually, at some point, it becomes a surface game, and I'm not quite sure what your people will do on the bottom side. They've added a few more. Yeah, they've added a few more small lore and story stuff that, further, like, logs to go through and check out and stuff like that. But it's still not very deep as far as I can tell. So I still like it. It's starting a colony is a lot more frustrating, but like you said, like, once you hit a certain point, you don't really have to manage it anymore, and you get sort of the right number of colonists and the right number of robots and the right number of surface stuff. And then it's just kind of like, okay, I need to go check on this and do that and explore that and set up these things. I want to, expand my facility and build something else. So I like it. I still like it. I talked quite positively about it when I discussed it last time. I think maybe about a year ago, actually. It was
I think it was
summer.
Yeah, I think it was shortly after I did my video on it.
Yeah. So I still enjoy it. I'm not sure that I would pay $20 for it. That's the thing. Like, I got a review copy of this game.
Yeah, it's a pretty steep price for it.
I don't think it's worth $20 yet because there's still not a lot to do on the end. Like, there's no lose state, really. I mean, I guess you could just not do anything and let all of your colonists starve to death.
Yeah, that was one of my complaints as well initially, was as long as you manage your food, everything else really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they don't have some sort of life support system yet. I don't recall that there was one.
So, I like it. But it's closer to an idle game at this point. It requires maybe a little extra management than your normal idle game would. But if it keeps plugging along, I think eventually it'll get there. It's got a good base. They've expanded on it. It just needs more expansion.
Yeah, supposedly they're still planning a release sometime this year. I'm assuming full release. I'm looking at their store page. Let's see, land features, expanded technology tree, more crops and natural resources. I'm not sure what they've added. Alien artifacts, additional cloning options / genetics. That could be interesting. That could make it so that, you could take that guy that's absolutely worthless and splice him with, a cat or something.
Yeah, I mean, clones actually are super easy to make at this point.
Some sort of trading system as well. Planet surface construction.
That would be nice. I'd like to have something else.
Sort of a multi-layer colony. Additional story content and various surface exploration and exploitation options. But it looks like they also say they will most likely increase in price after early access. I think that's a hard pill to swallow. And I know it's unfair to compare it to RimWorld, but RimWorld's kind of in this position where it's like the tier below Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah.
And it's, RimWorld's still $35, so. But yeah, it's just tough to accept.
Yeah.
Mostly because RimWorld has a lot more meat on bones, not just, the fact that it's a more mature game, but it started off with combat as well. It started off with more lose states.
I don't think this game would be good for combat, but you can introduce other adversarial factors that are not combat to this style of game.
Well, even just something like a disease that you have to deal with or something, some sort of additional lose state.
Yeah, I mean, you can set somebody up as a doctor and you can create a medical facility, but it's basically useless. Any injury or anything that anybody takes, they can just sleep, and they heal in their sleep. So, I mean, you can heal faster if you have a med bay, but you don't really need one.
Yeah, I compare that to how RimWorld handles it, where for every injury you have and type of injury, you have a chance of getting an infection, and infection requires... it doesn't require, but it's accelerated immunity if you treat it properly with a doctor, and even more so if you use medicine. And that's before you even start getting to mods where they add different types of medicine so that you could give them antibiotics and that sort of thing to boost the immune system. And the immune system is based off the body parts of the person. So, hey, that kidney that guy lost, 2 years ago to a random sniper shot, well, that's going to impact your blood filtration, so you're kind of screwed. But your colonists have a prisoner who has 2 perfectly functional kidneys right now.
Yeah.
Not that I've done that or anything. Well,
sure.
Today.
But yeah, that is Mercury Fallen. I still like it, but I still don't think it's worth $20.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a very overly inflated sense of worth on their game. So, shall I move on to my first game? I swap my games around so that you would have a little bit of a break. So, I played 2 games off the Xbox Game Pass, and we'll talk about the Xbox Game Pass itself in a little bit. My first one is Opus Magnum, and no, I do not have that backwards. That's the name of the game. And you are an alchemist working for one of the great houses in a city. I can't recall the name of the city. And the entire game is focused around building molecule chains with various bits of machinery. And, well, I could sum up the game in pretty much, it's a Zachtronics game. And if you played a Zachtronics game, you know that it's a puzzle game that gets deviously complex and engaging, but also is very open-ended on its levels and allows you to kind of explore the game mechanics at your own pace. And that's what Opus Magnum. I keep wanting to use the proper term Magnum Opus because, that's a well-known phrase. But Opus Magnum, it has sort of the charm and the complexity that I really enjoyed with Space Chem, with a steampunk aesthetic about it, plus a lot deeper storyline that I'm only just barely scratching the surface. I'm like a quarter of the way through Chapter 2 after the alchemist that you play graduated school during the tutorial. But everything is handled by this really neat system of arms and railways and everything. And it turns each level into like a work of art. I'm actually going to drop a couple GIFs into Discord for you because I want you to see this. This is a couple of my solutions for the various levels. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I say that every level, once you complete it, it feels like you're watching a watch with its casing off and just watching everything just tick around. So there's 1, there's 2, and all of these are able to be exported directly from the game.
Oh, that's cool. I thought about trying this game, and I still intended to, but I haven't yet.
Yeah, and you're also...
I like this.
Yeah, you also have the ability to kind of tailor it to how you feel. Like, you're kind of just given this wide open space and told, okay, you have these products that you are introduced into the level, and you need to create this molecule chain. Here's your tools. Have at it. And you could build something incredibly complex, very Rube Goldbergian. You could do what I've been doing and just try to do it as fast as possible and damn the cost. Or you could try to make something very small and compact, or do something that's very cheap. And various components have different costs associated with them, and also, of course, size. So one of the things I linked is a very compact thing that makes a chain of 4 molecules that just drops it off. Oh, well, it's also very expensive because some of the parts in it. While some of the others, actually I saved 4, but one of them has this giant swinging arm that takes up a lot of space. Here is another one that's really tiny that you're going to have to probably figure out a way to put these in the show notes, but you can see what I'm talking about, how it turns each level into its own work of art.
Yeah.
And everything is controlled by essentially, we've both done video editing software. Every component of the level is handled by its own track, essentially on a video editing software where you could drag and drop different commands to control the arms to make it so that it swings stuff around or rotates it in place. There's not actually a good example of that because I typically try to maneuver things so that whenever something rotates by just an arm moving, it's already in the proper orientation, like you can see in the middle GIF.
Yeah.
You can see how it goes from a horizontal to a vertical rotation, then it just gets finished off there. And there's various tools that you get access to that promotes different elements to the next element up. It uses the classical element system, so going from lead to gold via transmutation, and the 4 classical elements, earth, air, fire, and water, plus salt and a couple base metals, and that's it. And it sounds like a very simple game, but it gets deviously complex very quickly. I mean, these are just, this is gifts out of chapter 1. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed at just how satisfying it is. I mean, this is, well, it's a Zachtronics game, so saying that, it's comparable how Space Chem is. It's the same developer, but sitting back and watching everything click into place and just watching it all in motion is just absolutely breathtaking. But it's a very simple game on the surface, but it turns itself into a very complex game. And even more so once you finish a level, and then you have all the charts come up and see, okay, well, I did it sort of fast, but there's this big peak here that says that, I could shave some cycles off because it handles every tick of time as a cycle. And all the actions are normalized. So something rotating takes the same amount of time as something, an arm moving from one position to another. So you start looking at your solution like, okay, how can I save time on this? Or how can I make it a little cheaper? How can I make it a little faster? And, you turn it kind of almost into your own game on top of the puzzle element that the game presents you. And this isn't even really scratching the surface of the story, where you're an alchemist in a great house in the city, and there's warfare between the multiple houses, and there's intrigue going on, and you're talking with one of the ladies of the house that you're employed by, and going back and forth. And it's kind of funny, the protagonist, for lack of a better term, he's has a very high opinion of himself. So he's talking about all the weapons he'll create, and whenever open war's declared, one of the first things that you're told to do is, okay, go make some hair gel to make the general look fabulous when he gives a speech. And you're like, really? Hair gel? don't you want like a rocket or something?
That's amazing. I want to make hair gel.
Well, you can. Matter of fact, I think the first gift I sent you, no, the first gift is a hair product. So yeah, that's the hair gel. That's actually out of chapter 2.
Gotcha.
But yeah, that's Opus Magnum. A very short introduction to it, just because I haven't played enough of it where it gets deviously complex, but I could already see where it is, where it's going with it. But also the fact that it kind of just lets you do, let you learn at your own pace. It gives you the basic rules of the game. You're told, okay, well, if you need to see the elemental progression, there's the periodic chart, for lack of a better term, down there in the corner. And if you mouse over the different tools, it'll tell you what you do. Some of them you can't really use on a particular level, like it requires Quicksilver to be able to catalyze the transmutation. But outside of that, have fun. And also, just because it at the end of every level you're able to export it as a GIF, you're able to share your solutions very easily. And, show off, well, this is how I did it in, 67 cycles. With an area of 21 things to make hair gel.
Yeah, this looks really interesting, up my alley. I mean, like I said, I was interested in trying it before. It was kind of just on my list of games to try on Game Pass, but I think I'll definitely put a little bit farther up the list, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, it's a Zachtronics puzzle game, so I knew what I was getting into before I even loaded it up. I knew of Opus Magnum. It's just I never really bought it because it never really went on a deep discount. And I absolutely love Zachtronics games, but I just tend to bounce off of them at some point because they start to get so complex that I put them down and I just don't pick them back up. I mean, that's that's not a slight on that type of game. That's a slight on me in a way because, I have other things I need to focus on. I need to get more time with Enter the Gungeon. So I have to, put messing around with Opus Magnum further back than I really want to because, But yeah, I would say
nice.
I would say it's definitely worth a check out, especially if you get Game Pass.
Well, speaking of another game that we have played on Game Pass,
Yeah, perhaps a little too much this last weekend.
we have gone ham on Forza Horizon 4.
Yeah, which this is my first real introduction to the into the Forza series, let alone the Horizon series, and this is your introduction to the Horizon series, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the Forza Horizon 4, it's a open world racing game where you have multiple disciplines of different disciplines of racing, and you're kind of just after a very short campaign, the first year, you're just told, okay, now go do what you want.
Yeah, it takes maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
you might could do it less if you just mainline through it. I did a lot of side stuff unnecessarily, just because I was trying to complete everything that popped up.
Because you wasn't sure if it would cut it off, right?
Well, I assumed it wouldn't cut it off, but I was just sort of getting the hang of things and exploring around.
Well, I ended up doing some of the story stuff, especially the stuntman stuff, and that progressed me quite a bit because it was powered by your global influence.
Yeah, I did the stuntman stuff really early on, too. I completed it all the way. So I gotta go back and 3-star it, but...
Yeah, I actually did finish the very end of that, but... like I said, it's a sandbox racing game, so it's kind of your own thing. Where, okay, you want to focus on dirt racing? Fine. You want to go drift? Don't know why, but okay.
Because it's amazing, that's why.
Sure, right.
I love drifting. I think it was Forza 3 that introduced achievements for drifting, and that was at a time in my life when I was Xbox, gamer score, get it high. And I spent forever learning how to drift in the game, but it actually, I got good at it and I liked it, and it helped me learn how to drift a little bit better in real life, just because I actually understood some of the mechanics a little bit more. I've banged on before about how good a simulation Forza is.
Yeah, well, this is not as good a simulation because this is the arcade version of it.
Right. It has a good spectrum, though. If you're someone like me who comes from you like the sim-heavy stuff, there's a decent amount of that in it. It took me a little bit to get it sort of the configuration down, because there's, all the driver assists that you're used to if you play Forza or Gran Turismo or something like that. Traction control, analog brakes, stability control. But then there's some stuff with driving physics that you can adjust. And I think it's sort of how much that it helps you out, just not have to deal, I think, with uneven road surfaces and things like that. It just kind of will auto-correct a little bit for you. And turning that off and then messing with some of the other stuff to get it sort of down pat really helped. I eventually did. I had the simulation tire wear and damage on, but when it comes to certain races, like off-road races where you're doing jumps and going on and off the track a lot, that actually made it extremely difficult because your car's taking damage in the race, which I get it. That's realistic, but that takes it a little bit too far for me.
And also some of the off-road racing has you plowing through stuff.
Yeah, which damages your car and slows you down. The damage doesn't get anywhere near as bad as it does in the other Forzas, because if you have a header with a barrier in any of the mainline Forza games and you've got simulation damage and tire wear turned on, you just totaled your car. You're done. But in this, you hit a tree at 180 miles an hour and your car now steers really poorly and drives more slowly.
Or it looks like a crinkled Coke can.
Yeah. I've got cosmetic damage turned on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I do as well.
But I mean, that makes sense for the type of game that it is, because you don't want someone, or multiple people careening off road, because the game lets you do that, crashing into a tree, and it's like, well, fuck, I guess I have to reset and go back to my house or the Horizon zone or whatever it is, the festival zone, so that I can repair my car. But from a gameplay perspective, it can be very Forza. Like I said, it took me a little bit to dial it in, but it strikes an excellent balance between arcade and simulation. If you're someone like me who's very sim heavy and you want to make your game very sim like, but still enjoy a lot of the arcade qualities,
and
they did it well.
About perfect for me, where I'm more of a sim arcade guy. I like a little bit of sim, but not as big a car guy. So I typically lean more towards the arcade version of racing. So keeping some of the stuff off hits about the sweet spot for me, where I'm still able to sit down and tinker with stuff, but I have a larger margin of error.
Yeah, I think that reflects in how we play too. Like, you're joking about. I mean, I know you don't like drifting, and you're kind of picking on me with that. But it's like drifting is extremely technical, and I like that, and you don't. And I enjoy the off-road racing, but you're like, I'm gonna drive off-road everywhere, and I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna get my cool B or A class classic car.
I mean, we could always go
cruise around.
Cruising. It's just we were doing story stuff.
Yeah, we can talk about that in a minute, but I mean, there's lots of stuff to do, lots of stuff, but it doesn't feel like in the way that a lot of open world games feel, where it's like, let me just litter the map with shit to fill it up. There's a really wide variety of events that I think can hit every player demographic. There's multiple types of racing events.
Well, not even just the events, but the side stuff. The danger signs, where it's various jumps. Sometimes almost puzzle-esque, trying to figure out how to approach them to 3-star them to get a certain amount of speed to hit them, so you can fly far enough. And speed traps. Perhaps even the type of car, which we still need to test that. Yeah.
There's speed traps and speed zones, which sort of reward technical driving. Speed traps are, it's a single speed camera, so you're trying to just careen past it as fast as you can.
Yeah, and damn what happens after you go past that.
Yeah, and then speed zones are you have to maintain a high average speed for a certain portion of road, so you have to be a little bit more careful with those.
Yeah, which I've actually really enjoyed those, which is more of a technical drive, but still.
Yeah, I like them too. Then there's the drift zones, which, score a certain amount of drift points within.
I could hit 1 or 2 stars in a drift zone. It's just I don't particularly enjoy it.
Yeah. There's the bonus boards, which reward exploration around the map, essentially. And the bonus boards cover the fast travel boards and then the influence boards. The fast travel boards reduce the costs for fast traveling around the island, and if you hit them all, fast travel's free. And then the influence boards are part of the level up system, and they give you points going towards your level up.
And
I think everything you do contributes to your level up.
Yeah, everything you do contributes, but it's a split system. So you have your global influence, which the influence board, that's what that gives, as well as the exploration. And the bonus boards are in 1, 3, and 5,000 denominations. 1,000 typically is just anywhere, side of the road, off in the middle of the field, that sort of thing. 3,000 is usually a little bit more tricky in there, and it seems like 3,000 is also the least populated. But
yeah, the 3,000s are maybe hidden away a little bit, but it's not like you have to do something crazy to get to them most of the time. It's just like you think, I wonder if there's something underneath that bridge over there, and it's probably a 3,000 point.
Either 1,000 or 3,000, because also if you go close enough, it'll trigger, it'll show you on the map.
Yeah, and then the 5,000 point bonus boards are almost entirely something skill or specific car.
Or hidden out in the middle of absolute nowhere.
Yeah, so there was a couple of 5,000s I grabbed today. I was playing with King. And then one of them, we had to figure out the right speed to jump off of a danger ramp going almost the wrong direction to hit it, and like, too slow, you would hit the house that it was on top of. Too fast, you'd completely overshoot it.
Yeah, there was a couple like that. There was a 5,000 I hit that it required essentially a very compact car. Any car that was of a normal size, it was too small too small a place to get into. So you had to swap over to like the P50 Peel.
Yeah, I found one like that. I don't have that specific car, but I had another very small car that's kind of like a sand or a dune buggy. It's very compact, and it was just small enough to fit. My car actually got stuck, and I had to warp back out to the road when I crammed it in there. But it was just small enough to get that bonus board. I'm sure there's more than one like that, but there's 200 in total. I think it's 150.
150 influence boards spread across the 3 denominations and 50 quick travel boards, which I've gotten over half the quick travel now.
Yeah, I also have more than half. I think it's like 4,600 credits for me to fast travel.
Yeah, I think I'm right at 4,000 or so.
Yeah, but so there's all of those things on the world for you to just do. There's all of the different racing events. There's the story-related events. These are challenges and then specific races that you get as you go through sort of the campaign portion.
Yeah,
and they're like crazy races.
And it's also split across several different storylines. Like you have the world's fastest rentals that you buy into, and as you progress through the story of it, you're getting more and more daily income from it. There's Aisha's taxi surface, which is kind of an offshoot of the world's fastest rentals, where you're driving the world's fastest the fastest taxi in Britain. This takes place in Britain, by the way.
Yeah. There's one that's actually, or not a taxi, but like a challenge. There's one called British Racing Green that is you drive classic British cars and then their modern variants, and it's like a little documentary thing.
Yeah,
so
I've
you
only
learn
done one of
about
those so far. I need to go back and do more of those.
I haven't completed them. I've done a few of them.
There's the car files, which is my absolute favorite. You're employed by this German insurance guy, and he's trying to figure out various claims, if they're true or not, to his insurance company. Can a Volkswagen bus fly if it hits a certain speed and maintains it?
Yeah, and some of them are that one's actually pretty tame. Like, you might be thinking like, oh, that's silly. They get way sillier.
Like the Robin.
Yeah. Then there's drifting ones, which I have 3-starred all of the drift.
Yeah, how hard is it to 1-star those just for me to get through them?
It's pretty easy to 1-star them. They're all, I think, fairly generous. There's, I think, one that's tough that you have to use like an all-wheel drive car to do drifting. That one's a little bit hard. But all the rest of them are fairly easy to 1-star. Then there's the stunt challenges, where that you're like a stuntman for a movie, and so you're doing, movie type stunts.
Yeah,
that one's the first one you get.
Yeah, and also some of them are references to famous movie chases or car scenes in movies.
Yeah, and also if you've ever watched Top Gear, Grand Tour, Fifth Wheel, like those types of shows, there's lots of references and jokes to that stuff. There's also lots of references to, famous car chases, like you just said, but they come in other places than just the stunt challenges.
Yeah, and also then the game does get off and go a little crazy at times during the showcase events. One pops up during each of the 4 seasons in your initial year, and then there's a couple more that shows up. You're racing a hovercraft.
Yeah, that one was fun.
The Flying Scotsman. You race it, the train.
Yeah, that was my kid's favorite, because obviously racing a train.
Glad I told you to make sure he's around.
Yeah, he's actually watched me do all of the showcase events. He really likes those, because they're silly. They're all, the motorcycle, or the dirt bike one isn't very silly.
Yeah, that's pretty.
It was still cool, but that one's not very silly.
The Halo one
the
was
hovercraft is silly. The Halo one is pretty fun.
I still have one more where I have to race the jet that I haven't done yet.
Oh, racing the jet was a blast. They do some fun stuff with the jet too. I mean, they do fun stuff with all of them, but I won the jet one by less than 1/10 of a second. Like, it was crazy. I won it by like 2 1,000ths. that one was hard. And I also wound up beating the Flying Scotsman by less than a second.
Yeah, so you don't even have to beat them. You just have to complete them.
Yeah, but I wanted to win all of them. And then the Halo one, there's not actually like...
There's not a fail condition. Technically, I failed because the countdown hit 0, but...
Yeah, but it still gives you like first place or whatever, even if that happens, so...
And there's also some weird cars. Like, I have a Warthog, I have the Peel P50, I have an Isetta, I have a Reliant Robin, Super Van.
I love the variety of cars in this game.
Oh, there's just
like,
so many.
If you're not a car person, a lot of what Rage just said would like not make any sense to you.
Well, I also picked
they have
weird ass cars that I've had.
Yeah, they have a lot of stuff that you would expect, like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, other super and hypercars. They've got a lot of stuff that's sort of like iconic. Like you think like variations of the Mustang, the Corvette, the things like that. But they've also got just like a lot of normal ass cars, which I really enjoy, like a Ford Bronco or the Ford Crown Victoria police car. Like a Dodge Ram, like just a bunch of like normal ass cars. And I think that's fun because it lets you take something that you feel like you could possess and then do some cool stuff with it. Then there's a lot of...
And also, also an interesting thing is how they do the Dravatars, where you could take pretty much any car into a race and be competitive with it, because what it does is it takes your car, your class, and your setup, and it compares that with the Dravatars and puts them in similar cars. So if you take a little crappy car out, you're going to be putting around the track with a bunch of other guys in similarly stacked cars.
Yeah, that in combination with their sort of, it's called blueprints, but it's basically you create your own race. I love that because it doesn't really limit you. Like, for example, if you pull up to an event and it's like a dirt event, you can go with like what it's got as like the default recommended, but you can also just do anything you want and it counts you as completing that event. So you can show up to like a dirt event and set it to be like classic muscle cars. And then you can have all of these American muscle cars like, sliding and drifting around a messy dirt track. And that can be fun, but you can use that to do anything that you want. So if you really want to, like with me, I've got a set of like, top for each and every class that I have, but I also like to just putter around in like B class and A class cars, which are, sort of your middle of the road. Maybe they excel at one area or they're just kind of a general all-rounder, but they're not too crazy. And I found that to be a lot of fun because that's, again, a lot of technical driving, and it's not quite so much about how fast you can go. And so, I can bring those cars in and I can set up specific weird events. Like one thing I like to do is to do like a bootleggers type thing. And I will do like the classic muscle car on dirt tracks and, be like a moonshiner or rum runner or whatever, like just kind of in my head. And I just have fun with that. And it lets you do that. And as far as I can tell, the rewards are the same. Like it bases a lot of the actual rewards that you get from doing the races, like your credit and experience rewards, off of your diffialty settings.
Well,
there's like a baseline for each race.
Ratio of your difficulty settings and distance. So some of the farm races that just are there to generate credits go up and down the highway. So you're pretty much able to hit top speed and just stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have like my one of my Ferrari set up to do is just as fast as I can, top end speed. There's only like one place I have to let off the throttle, not counting the ends where you go around like a hairpin turn, and then just go like 270 miles an hour down the highway.
Yeah. There is, speaking of money and stuff, though, let's talk a little bit about...
the big bugbear is the progression system.
It's really weird. Most of it, a huge chunk of it is random. There are levels, not like your Drivatar level. As it goes up, there's certain milestones where you do get cars. And most of the challenges and things, like as you increase your star ranking, you get farther leveled up in that, and there are set cards you get from that.
And also the barn finds after you get to a certain point in the story, you start unlocking barn finds. Every so often, they'll contact you and say, hey, we heard a rumor about a car in this area. Go check it out. And you go look around and you'll find a barn that you loot and get a classic car out of. Usually pretty good cars. Sometimes they're a little iffy, like the Peel P50 is one of them. That's essentially like a shopping cart with an engine on it.
Yeah, but that one's kind of a silly one. You can get like the Jaguar XJ220 if you're someone out there and you know what that is. There's a Aston Martin DB4 Zagato that you can get out of it. You can get a specific version of the Subaru Impreza. A few other like very good cars that can be used for various racing disciplines out of them. So there's a couple of silly things, but most of them have got some pretty interesting stuff. But the biggest majority of your car progression, at least initially, I don't know if it changes as you get farther and farther out in the game. Because
I'm in the mid 100s and it's still the same.
I mean, I hit level 101, 100 or 101 today.
Yeah, I'm like
I don't know what the max level is.
I've seen people in the 900s.
Okay, yeah, I saw somebody today that was 350, and that's the highest I've seen.
Well, that's something else is the Forzathon Lives that we haven't talked about. We'll get to that.
Oh, right. Yeah, we'll come back to that.
But everything outside of the set rewards, the barn finds, the milestones, and that sort of thing, and whenever you start a particular discipline, they'll also give you a starter car.
Which they give you good starter cars too.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that thing where it gives you like a shitty like bottom of the barrel car.
Yeah. The starter car
is
pretty tricked out. It's not top of the class, but it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, most of them are like A class. I think one of them, just by nature of the type of car it was like an S class. But most of the starter cars are like A class, which, like I just said a minute ago, like that's pretty good. They excel at whatever their particular discipline is, but they're not.
But remember, also the drivatars are tuned to what car you bring in.
That's true, but it really helps to get some
that psychological feel,
good stuff right off the bat. Because I've played every standard Forza game and most of the Gran Turismos, and it's like you always start in the really shitty slow car and have to build your way up to the good one. Even the other sort of open world games like this, like Test Drive and The Crew, which I think I'll talk a little bit more about towards the end.
Yeah,
but those games start you out in shitty cars too. So, anyways,
this gives you a pretty good starter car right away. But outside of all that, everything is on a slot machine system. Either normal spins or what they call super spins. Every time you level up your global influence, which once you get past level 100, and you're not getting as much stuff in the each individual disciplines, it starts to really ramp up the amount of global influence ticks you get. Which, as far as I can tell, also is static, at least in the 100s range. Because my farming race I do, it pretty much guarantees me like 3 or 4 levels. It does a spin on the wheel, and there's cosmetics on it for your driver. There's horns. There's certain amounts of credits, and then there's cars of varying rarities. And that is the progression system, is it's spinning the slot machine and see what you get. It's a gacha game in a sense. Only without getting multiples. I don't think I've ever gotten a multiple of a car. I bought multiples of a car.
I have gotten one. I picked the Dodge Ram for my starting off-road car, or extreme off-road or whatever that car class is, and then I got one off of a spin. But you can sell them on the auction house, or what I did was I just set one up for off-road and one set up as like an on-road truck.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just go and buy cars.
Yeah, at the auction house, and the auction house is pretty damn cheap to buy cars usually.
Well, you can just straight up buy cars.
Mm-hmm.
At the Forza
Auto Show, but they don't offer all the cars.
No, I think they rotate them.
No, I haven't not actually sure about that.
And then, but yeah, the auction house, the auto show. And then you can buy specific cars from the, what's it called? Is it the Horizon shop?
Yeah, there's
The one that you get with
there's
the
some
special points.
microtransactions in it as well, where you get a car pass for like $17 or $20 to get a set of cars, like cars from James Bond or various old muscle cars, which I'm not a huge fan of, but right.
Yeah.
But there's
But yeah,
not a way to buy spins per se, or at least with real money, as far as I could tell. But you also get the spin so often that it's still scummy. It still is. It has me taken aback a bit, just by it's like, okay, this has that gambling itch in it, but they give it to you so often that it kind of levels out the curve a little bit on the cars you get versus the cosmetics. It still sucks whenever you get a cosmetic that's ugly, but you know that you're going to get another one pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a little concerning.
I feel like they've struck a really good balance as far as things go. Like, I'm not giving them like a free pass for it. I dislike in general these types of systems.
Well, it also makes me wonder just behind the scenes how much tweaking of the odds as you do spins are done, because I've gotten some of the super spins where it's essentially the full slot machine. You're getting 3 spins out of one, where I've gotten absolute shit. I've got like 25,000 credits, which is something that shows up on the normal spin. But then I've gotten a super spin that gave me a legendary car, an epic car, and an absolute ton of credits on top of it.
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if am I just lucky or unlucky in those cases, or is it the odds being nudged as I do more of the spins? Because I don't have a particular class of car, or a lot of them in that like oddball class, so they'll nudge the odds a little bit more, so I'm seeing them more often.
I don't know. I honestly don't pay attention. I'm always just like, I press the button as fast as I can to get the actual spin part over, because I don't give a shit.
Spin and then skip.
Unless my kid's there.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, spin and skip.
Because that the slot machine, that how it takes over and almost goes to the next one, or barely skips over to the next one. That's determined as soon as you press the button. That's all visual.
Yeah. It's this interesting thing. Like, I feel like it strikes a pretty good balance. Like, if it's going to have this kind of system, which, obviously it does, I think it strikes a good balance between, like, how often it gives it to you, the type of rewards it gives, that sort of thing. But also the fact that Forza, it's built this system in, like we were just talking about, how that the game sort of sets it to whatever you want to do. So never at any point in time have I felt limited by not having a type of car or a specific car, because that doesn't matter, because the game is going to set itself to whatever I have.
But also the other thing is how it's changed our experiences. So I got a couple really good off-road cars pretty much immediately. And you got, I'm assuming, more street vehicles, right?
No, actually, I've got what I feel like are several pretty good off-road cars. My driving style is...
No, pretty much immediately I got off-road cars. But also ended up with a fair amount of classic cars. I got a 1950s Chevy truck that I could just put around in.
I've got, I know you've got more cars than me, but I have, I think, 106 cars.
I think I'm up to like 140 some.
I've got a good spread across everything except for hypercars. I think I've only got one hypercar.
Oh, I've got several hypercars.
But
you've seen me tool around in the Ferrari.
Yeah. I also just get a bunch of random stuff off of the auction house, because I'll go and look at just like anything that's got a bid of less than 10,000 that's ending within the next minute, and I'll just bid like on everything on the page, unless it's something that I've got, but I'll bid on everything. So I've gotten some stuff that, I've gotten some good stuff, I've got some shitty stuff. My biggest problem, and I've done this with every Forza game forever, is I will go, well, I would like to get this one particular car, whatever it is, but instead I'll buy 15 of these cars, spend $100,000 on each of them to get them to a specific class, and then mess with them. And I've done that with Forza games forever, so that's nothing new for me.
Yeah, there's been a couple times that I've messed around with a particular truck, or getting the the tractor last night. I was toying around with that, but that's something I could spend money elsewhere on. But I also was messing around with various off-road cars to be able to take them online for various things as well. And that's the other thing, circling back around to Forzathon and Forzathon Live, because they have a pseudo battle pass thing going on where it goes by a weekly cycle along with the cycle of the map. So the map isn't always the same. It changes throughout the seasons. Each season lasts a week. So currently the map is in the autumn season, which also unlocks certain barns and also makes it so that certain races are a little bit different. But then it'll progress to winter because, that's how the seasons work. And it makes it so that the roads are slicker, but also you may want to go in and change your cars to more snow-based setups. But
yeah,
this Battle Pass system awards you with Forzathon points, which unlocks a shop that has a rotating stock with the seasons of 1 or 2 cars, a couple cosmetics, and that's the only place that you can buy spins as well. And it also ties into Forzathon Live, which is an hourly event every hour on the hour. Everyone on the server has the chance to go to this event and have a collaborative experience, which I found a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoy it too.
So what it is a particular place on the map about 10 minutes till the hour pops up. And then at 5 minutes, everybody gets told, hey, Forzathon's about to start. And you got to race over there or, just fast travel if it's close enough to one of your houses or things, which that's something else that we really didn't touch on. And it's a 3-round, 15-minute thing. 15 minutes total. If you don't complete all 3 rounds in that amount of time, you only get what you completed. And it takes objectives from the map and it kind of nudges you in different directions because it will say, okay, there's a danger sign here. Everybody has to jump off of it and the collaborative group has to obtain a total sum of this distance. And every time you jump, you add to that. So it's not just, you only did 100 and that's all you're ever going to contribute. No, if you do another jump, you add another 100 or so, and on and on and on. And it kind of encourages that exploration because it may take you to a part of the map that you hadn't really looked at yet. Or it may show you, hey, there's a danger sign here that you didn't know about. Go check it out, right? And also shows you how to get some of the influence boards because there was one that was on top of a church that I couldn't figure out how the hell you're supposed to get to it. Well, there was a danger sign that I hadn't unlocked that I didn't notice later on that the Forzathon Live was part of that showed me, okay, this is how you do that. And it felt, it's not really an organic way. It's very artificial, but it's that collaborative effort that kind of breaks up the monotony of all the random races. And this is on top of the Battle Pass system where you have 7 daily challenges for the season plus a bunch of set challenges. And some of them are collaborative efforts, some of them are PvP, some of them are just, do certain tricks. Like, today's was get 2 ultimate near misses, which means get on the highway, drive on the wrong side of the road, and start missing cars. But only a little bit. Until you get the ultimate miss, essentially chain. But some are more involved, like getting near misses, which is drifting while almost hitting a car. Some are just, winning a race. Then you get into the weekly challenges, which are a championship where it's drivatars versus players. So all the players kind of group up on that drivatars and you have to race to beat them. Some of them are post a certain lap on this track against online rivals. It has a good selection of things that makes it so that, at least for the time being, it doesn't feel like it's going to get monotonous.
Yeah.
And also, well, you mentioned the crew. I think we have to compare it to the other games in this genre that we've played. I've only really played the crew. And it has a less of a edginess to it. The crew took itself not nearly as seriously as Forza Horizon does, which sounds weird. But the crew also tried to put more of a story into this sort of game, which just didn't work. And also, this shows that size of the map definitely isn't everything, because the crew's map, I would say it's several times bigger than this. Easily.
Yeah, easy.
In both directions. So, yeah, area is just blown away. But it doesn't feel like you're alone. Remember how I called the crew the most lonesome MMO I've played? In Forza, even though there's a similar number of players on the map, because they're so concentrated, you'll see them occasionally just drop past. And if they're not in your convoy, essentially your group, you'll just pass right by them. But it gives a sense of, hey, this event is really happening, and there's other drivers here doing their own things. And sometimes just sitting and watching, okay, that driver's trying to get that influence board. Just sit and watch him do it for a bit, get an idea of what's going on, or see them trying out other challenges. And it gives a sense of life to the world that the crew was desperately lacking. Just because outside of the introduction to the crew, I rarely saw people.
Yeah, same. And I think compared to the crew, Forza is better in a number of ways.
I would say just about
customization.
I would say just about every way outside of just map size.
Yeah, I think so. And Forza's got the story of the festival, and there's some serious elements, but in general, it's very not necessarily silly and wacky. There's definitely silly and wacky bits to it, but if there's a game I've played in recent history that just is like about the essence of fun, it's this game. Like, there's nothing about it that like makes me feel like I need to grind for something, or I need to I have to be somewhere and do something, or I don't feel like I have chores. It's just like, what do I want to do today? Do I want to do some silly stuff? Do I want to just drive around and relax? Do I want to try and find the rest of those bonus boards, or do I want to do some serious racing?
Yeah, the only time I've
it's just
really felt like I had to do something was when I discovered a house that gave bonus Forza Live points. So I quickly ground that out. But that was I put on some music or some podcasts, and I just drove.
Yeah. There's a number of open world car games, more than you might think if you've never been into the genre. But the one that I talk about a lot, I've talked about this game multiple times on the show, is Test Drive Unlimited. And specifically, I think Test Drive Unlimited 2, the first one was great, and I loved it. And that's kind of where I got my introduction into sort of more simulation race car driving. That was the first game that I had a friend talk me into using manual transmissions for my car, and turning off some of the driver assists, and driving using the first person camera. It wasn't in the cockpit. That wasn't really, not that it wasn't a thing, but it was less common then. It was the hood cam, yeah.
See, I still do third person, and I do automatic transmission, but that's maybe I should try manual.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to though, but I had some serious car friends who talked me into doing some of that stuff, and it increased my enjoyment of the game. But anyways, Test Drive Unlimited 2, though, is the one that really sticks out the most to me, because that one, Test Drive Unlimited is just like, hey, you're at a car festival thing that's kind of understated. Drive all of these really cool cars wherever you want on this island. And Test Drive Unlimited 2 had Honolulu and Madrid, Spain. And it was very fun. It was very relaxed. There was a huge lack of customization and things in those games, but it was kind of a different world as far as that stuff went, 10, 12 years ago. But this game, Forza Horizon, makes me feel like how I remember Test Drive Unlimited, if that makes sense. I know that nostalgia is bumping up my memories and my estimations for Test Drive Unlimited and 2, Unlimited 1 and 2, but this game makes me feel like how I remember feeling in Test Drive. And last night, like when we were, that's what we did for community game night because Ghost Shark had it, and there's at least one other person in our community that has it, but he plays it on Xbox, and we don't know if there's crossplay yet.
Yeah, we didn't get to check that. We need to try that, and Jim is getting the Game Pass, so he'll have it.
Yeah, and when we were online, just like showing off cars and like crashing into each other, and I kept like repeatedly challenging Ghost Shark to a race, even though his car was clearly better than mine. But I just kept challenging because I'm like, you asshole, I've got to beat you.
Or I break out the pedo van and I drive into him.
That was hilarious. We were comparing cars, and you're like, hey, guys, want some ice cream?
No, free candy.
Free candy. That's what you said. It's just all of those little moments. It's like, yeah, making me feel like how I used to feel with Test Drive. But then we did like some serious racing a little bit. We were kind of learning the systems because that was the first time we had all done it. It flows pretty well. I have a few issues with it, but I need to actually play with like the race creator some more, because I think you can set up multiple race events, and I think that's the way to go, because you've got sort of a setup time and then a wind down time after every individual race, and we needed to coordinate cars a little bit better. Yeah. Setting it to unlimited caused the computer to like freak out. We were doing an off-road race and we were racing like Ferraris and Lamborghinis. And yes, I know there are a couple of off-road Lamborghini.
Well, it probably
Ferraris,
doesn't help that my rally car is a Porsche.
Yeah.
Well, a Porsche truck or SUV or something.
Yeah, you use it's not Cayenne. Porsche. Do you have the Panamera?
No, I think it is the Cayenne.
Oh, okay. But anyways, we should kind of work on that one a little bit more. But we did a couple of...
that's one of the other... No, that looks like it.
We did it, but we did a couple of Forza-thon lives, and those were fun. And, some other stuff. Like, there's a lot to be had there, just hanging out and doing stuff, so... It's great.
Yeah, we need to get you the barn find for the Peel, so we could just drive around with those.
That was the summer barn find.
Oh, it was?
And I missed summer, because that's the only one that you have that I don't, and I have all 12 of the non-seasonal barn find cars.
I didn't realize
that must have been the summer car. Yeah.
Because I got to through the first year, and I had like 2 days of summer.
Yeah, and so you got the summer one, and I didn't, because I didn't get through the first year until the fall.
All right, then we buy Isetas.
So, but, yeah. So, if you've ever played and enjoyed any sort of open world car game, this is by far the best one. Like, you will like it. There's something here for everybody that likes car games. And, if you don't like car games, you may or may not like it, but it's definitely not, if you've seen Forza before and even Horizon, it'd be like, oh, yeah. Like they've talked about how, Jared in particular has talked about how Forza is like this awesome, like crazy simulator.
Yeah, Horizon
this game doesn't have
Horizon's
to be that
arcade
way.
cousin.
Yeah. And like I said, if you're someone who does like the simulation gameplay style, it takes a little bit of tweaking, but you can get pretty close to it. Get pretty close. So I'm very pleased with this game. I'm very happy. I'm on the verge of just buying it outright because I do want the Lego expansion and the Treasure Island expansion.
Yeah, maybe when it goes on sale.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. When it's on sale next time.
With the Game Pass, you also get a discount, so I'm not sure how that will work with like a summer sale or something.
Yeah, I don't know if they stack.
Yeah, it just
takes the higher of the
discount. Yeah, it just seems like getting a DLC for a game that you're essentially renting seems a little silly.
Yeah, but I'm gonna buy like the gold or the ultimate edition or whatever it is that's got all the DLC and all the extra car packs and everything. The game's got, I think, 450 cars, something like 450 cars in like the base version, and then all the DLCs add like another 150 cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just a ridiculous amount of cars. There are a lot that are essentially carbon copies of it of each other's because it'll be like, especially the more high end cars, it'll be like the like 97 and the 98 and the 99 Ferraris. Pick a name just at random that are very, very similar to the point where it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, and I think that's more for the car people, because, like, there can be a big difference between two different year models of a Ferrari or a Porsche or something like that. And, like, I care about that. But, you know, you...
Does it go Vroom?
Or also just the royal... Yeah, when I say you, I mean the royal you. You don't have to care about that. But I'm sure that, you know, they squeak in a few extras on that. But that's not the norm. It's not like they have 5 versions of every car. So there's only like 20 cars.
Yeah, there's only like one car that I noticed that was like, you know, half a dozen copies of it, or, you know, close copies.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you have the classic cars like I said, the 1950s, almost Fred Sanford Chevy truck.
Yeah. I love it. I don't have the Chevy, but I do have the Ford, like the, I think, 1950 something Ford F-150. Like the first year model that they made the F-150. I have that. I guess we're going to have to go cruising. It rolls over really easy. Yeah. I put like a 5, you know, I upgraded the engine, you know, put a bunch of stuff on it, got it like 500 horsepower, and it didn't change anything else. And so you take a corner and it like rolls over.
Yeah, I put a motorcycle engine in my Peel, so it peels.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, you hit the accelerator and it just, you know, leaves burn out for like, what would it be, like 50 or 60 feet?
Yeah. But, yeah. I mean, we could talk about more, I'm sure. Like, we could get into the nitty gritty, but in general, like, hey, I hope you enjoyed this impromptu game club about Forza Horizon 4. It was a blast. We both liked it a lot. Which I think speaks a lot about the game just in general. You and I have very different car game philosophies that we've talked about at various points throughout the show, and both of us really enjoy this game, so...
Yeah, I think it pretty much, as long as you can enjoy a racing game, you'll enjoy this to some degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also has that, you know, oh, well, there's a board over there. Oh, there's a jump over there. Oh, there's a speed zone just down the road.
Mm-hmm.
What? Forza-thon Live is starting? Well, I better get over there.
Yeah. So, an excellent game.
Yeah, which kind of brings us to kind of the Xbox Game Pass overall. And I would say more the launcher. It's a beta right now, so, you know, things are subject to change, of course. I do have a couple minor bugbears with it, but overall, it's not bad. I will say that I did find out that it set my computer back to the DVR back on, so, and I turned that off ages ago, so that annoyed me.
Yeah.
But I would say the main thing is that it's a little on the sluggish side, at least for me. Pages seem to load a little slowly. And also, the main thing that annoys me is that it has no ETA on its downloads. And some of these downloads are rather substantial. So, not having that, knowing, okay, well, I could go, make a sandwich or something. Versus, okay, well, I could go make a 4-course dinner.
Yeah, also, every time I try and download something, and it doesn't matter when or how or what or why, because I mean, I think everyone in our community is aware that I've had internet issues pretty bad the last month. Like, there's something wrong
user error
with my internet, my network, somewhere. But it doesn't really matter. Like, if I was having a good day or a bad day, I installed it on my laptop just to double check it. Like, every time I try to download something, it says error, but then it downloads anyway in the background.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that one. Another annoyance about it is that you can set it to download to various drives, but in order to do so, you have to go into the options and change it so that the next download goes to a different drive. And then you have to switch it back so you're not, like filling up your SSD.
Yeah. I've just got everything set to install on my hard disk, my big internal hard drive.
Yeah, it was just, there's a lot of little things, but it's also a beta, and this is an actual beta. And during the beta, it's $5 a month outside the E3 special. Then it jumps up to 10 when it gets full release, which I'm starting to get to the edge of, where I think it's worth it. just because I have it has a fair amount of carryover from like Twitch Prom and my Steam library and that sort of thing. I would say if you don't have a good library, it's definitely worth the 10.
Yeah. And depending on how much you really like some of the Microsoft exclusive games that you can't really get anywhere else, like this is a better way to do it than going through the Microsoft Store or Windows Store, whatever, because that thing sucks.
Mm-hmm. This does bring up the Windows Store
prompt
whenever you're getting something. Like there's a few free packs for different things that you have to manually enable. And in order to do that, it brings up a Windows Store prompt to type in your password every single time.
Yeah.
But it's a subscription launcher. It's not a store, so I could forgive it not having things like a shopping cart.
Yeah. I mean, it's way better than the Epic store. It's honestly, I think, better than every single one of these launchers I've seen, except Steam.
Well, what's interesting...
I don't use the GOG launcher very much, so I don't have a good comparison point on that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because they have announced that Microsoft is an official partner with GOG for Galaxy 2.0.
I saw that, actually.
So yeah, once Galaxy 2.0 comes out, I'm probably going to be ditching this launcher to go over there. Assuming that it's usable, of course.
Yeah. I'm looking at the games again, and we kind of talked about the game list a little bit on the E3 episode, but if you're the sort of person that's maybe not interested in that, or, you know, you might have missed it when we were just going and talking about so many different things, there's a really good variety of games on here.
Yeah, I was talking to Jim last night about it.
There's over 100 games in the launcher.
I don't think there's objectively a bad game in the list. There's some that are borderline, but there's not any that I would say, okay, that's definitely a bad game objectively. Subjectively, yeah, things like Hello Neighbor or We Happy Few, I think, are bad games. But
yeah,
I would say Hello Neighbor is probably the weakest one just on a technical standpoint, unless they fixed it from the last time I heard. But that's still a pretty high bar for bad games.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of games on here that I'm like, you know, if I was going to buy this, I wouldn't. But since it's on the list, I'll definitely give that a shot at some point.
Such as?
But there's nothing on here that...
I don't have the launcher launched right now.
Let's see.
There's one that's like a shopping cart racing game that's odd.
Yeah, that's the Goat... here we go. Supermarket Shriek.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you use your microphone and you yell into your mic, and you have to like yell louder than the goat does in order to drive the shopping cart. Very strange. But you know, games like Broforce, not interested. Don't think I own Broforce anywhere else. It might be like in my Twitch library or something, and then I don't realize it. But like, I wouldn't buy that. It's neat looking. I might try it, and I mean, I'll probably try it on here at some point if I keep it long enough. But you know, a game like Broforce, Disneyland Adventures, you know, that's a family game that I probably wouldn't buy just because my kid's not like a huge Disney fan, at least not at this point in his life yet. He's gravitated towards other things. But, you know, he would like to sit down and play a game with Mickey and Goofy and whoever else is in there. But I wouldn't buy it. Zoo Tycoon. Nothing wrong with Zoo Tycoon. I just probably wouldn't buy it, but it's here. Ark Survival, Recore, wouldn't buy either of those games on their own at this point.
I suppose like Recore wasn't terrible. It was just, it was a launch title, so it was a little undercooked.
Yeah. You know, Gears 4, that's a Microsoft exclusive. I fell off of the Gears series a long time ago, but like I have access to it, so I'd play it. And
also, the interesting thing is Microsoft's getting around the Epic exclusivity. Because Metro Exodus and The Outer Worlds are both on this.
Yep. Probably because of their, console, the Xbox stuff, but they can put it on here because it's the Xbox Game Pass for PC or whatever.
So I suddenly got a lot more interest in The Outer Worlds again.
So yeah, Slay the Spire. That's not something I'd probably buy.
That's not a bad game. It's a deck builder.
Yeah, Pony Island.
That's supposedly a mindfuck.
Hollow Knight. I would never buy it, but it's interesting, and I would check it out, and I now have access to it. So, I mean, there's lots of games on here that sort of fall into that category for me. And there's plenty of games that I'm, would buy too, but, it's great for me. I'm going to be keeping it for a while, and then, when it comes to the point that I'm ready to drop it, I'll probably purchase a few games that I'm really interested in keeping. That way I can at least get whatever the discount is.
Hey, we could always go play Sea of Thieves one week.
We could do that. Sea of Thieves might be interesting if I had more people to play with, and also now that they have air quotes fixed it with content.
Yeah, which that's the whole games as a service problem, is that they could just release games in a either broken or semi-broken state, and live off the pre-orders, and then fix it later.
Yeah. State of Decay 2, I probably wouldn't have bought that. It was basically got mediocre reviews, and most people said it's like State of Decay 1, but more.
Sort of like the Crackdown 3 problem. It's essentially more of Crackdown 1, but the sandbox genre has progressed since then.
Yeah, well, Crackdown 3 too. That's one that I probably wouldn't buy, but I have access to it, so at some point I'll probably play it. And I assume, like they've said, that the Microsoft first party stuff is going to be on here, permanently in the Game Pass, and then the third party stuff is what will occasionally rotate out. And it's been that way on the Xbox Game Pass, on the console. So
yeah, so over time this will get to be more and more of a better deal, especially if you like the first party Microsoft stuff.
Yeah. So, I do have a few niggles with the launcher itself. I don't have that slowdown issue.
Yeah, it's just the page loads a bit slowly. I mean, not terribly slowly. It's just there's a delay. And also, it feels like if you have too many games loaded, it's not a great system to have a bunch of the games in the library downloaded and ready to go, just because everything's over on that side. But it also makes it so that anything that's downloaded and ready to go, you just press a button and it launches.
Yeah.
But pretty minor stuff to really bitch about, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's much more sort of nitpicks in that respect.
Which mean nitpicking? Nah, never.
So yeah, I was kind of joking, but also not really when I said mini game club, because we've been recording for nearly 2 hours.
This is pretty much a normal game club now.
Yeah. Hey, there you go. Enjoy a bonus game club, guys.
Yeah, and this one goes Vroom.
Vroom indeed. Flipping over to the topics list.
Yeah, so I imagine we're killing that last one.
Probably.
We'll leave it on for now. We'll see how we go.
Yeah, and potentially Discovery Queue as well. I definitely want to leave Jim's submission on there for sure. Just make sure we, do our community stuff. But anyways, we'll not waste any more time babbling about things and move on to our first news topic.
Well, I thought you said we were not going to spend time babbling about things.
I'm just segueing to things. Anyways, mobile games are losing to video in the battle for users' time.
Which honestly isn't really surprising when I really sat down and thought about it. Just because mobile gaming has kind of stagnated a bit.
Yeah, and also most of mobile gaming falls into a similar trend of open your game for a few minutes, close it, and move on.
Or wait for it to bug you, in 6 hours or 3 hours.
Yeah, whereas if you're going to sit down and watch video or really do anything else on your phone, you're probably committing to longer time. YouTube videos, I think the average YouTube video is, 10 minutes now? Something like that.
Well, that's where kind of the sweet spot for the algorithm supposedly is the 10-minute range. Which, for doing a Let's Play, that's pretty much intro, click on a couple things, and outro.
Yeah. But, if you're going to be checking emails, texts, phone calls, browsing the interwebs, all of those things are probably going to take either more time just in a single go, or you're going to be checking your phone many more times for shorter periods of time, which of course add up to more than the 5 or 10 minutes you're probably going to be playing a game on your phone that 1 or 2 times a day to do your dailies or whatever. So, it does make perfect sense, but it's still interesting because gaming, they say in this article, like, they go through and they get some figures about growth
here's the thing,
for a couple of years.
Mobile games are losing out, but games remain the single most lucrative mobile app category. So, it's kind of counterintuitive. People are spending less time on games or less time than video, but it's still, the big cash cow where, let's see, comprising 74% of customer spending in 2018 total, which actually it really depends on how you break it down, because that would technically be me as well, but it also depends on how you count things like Netflix. Because if you count my Netflix subscription, then it would balance out. Well, thereabouts.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got you off your train of thought. I just want to interject that.
Oh, you're fine. What I was saying was that they had listed a number of things for like growth over the last few years, and that time spent in games had grown by 30%, but everything else grew at a higher rate than it did. So people are spending more time playing games on their phone than previously, but the time they've spent doing other things has increased by quite a lot. And we had a very brief conversation about this before we started. That makes perfect sense to me, as phones and tablets and things like that, the mobile space becomes much more integrated into daily life. Like, I get that, just about everybody has a smartphone these days, particularly if you're in a first world country. And I think most people around the world have at least a cell phone. I saw some studies about that at one point. It's something like 5 or 6 billion people have a phone out of, the 7 point whatever billion people on the planet. And then like more than 50% of those are smartphone users or something like that. I'm kind of pulling this out of my ass from a study I read like 6 months ago, but take that with a little bit of grain of salt. But it's a lot, and as it becomes even more increasingly integrated into daily life, and more things both from work and entertainment perspectives get put onto these devices, like, it makes sense that things would naturally grow anyways. Kids are getting access to phones earlier in life. The elderly population is getting greater access to technology. Like, my grandmother, she's 80-something, 82, 83. This woman doesn't know how to work her TV, but she's got a smartphone and has recently started, like, texting and playing games and stuff on her smartphone. And I'm like, who are you? Where's my grandmother? Did you replace her? But it's just, there's a greater integration. She's not the cookie one. She makes the best biscuits I've ever had, though. Yeah. But yeah, it just gets more and more integrated into daily life. So it makes sense that all of these numbers are going to go up and continue to go up.
Yeah, looking at my neighbors, it kind of runs the gambit. The lady across the hall from me, she's in her 60s, and she doesn't know how to use most technology. She still has a CRT TV, for Pete's sake. Yeah. But she's also one of those that says, I can't. And just dismisses it right off. But then there's others around here. There's a couple that have just, there's one older gentleman that has a flip phone. There's several that have smartphones. So, it's kind of that transition phase. And it's the ones that are like my neighbor from across the hall that are kind of the minority now of, completely shunning technology or having to get help for even most basic things like getting digital coupons for the local grocery store. She has to get the manager of the apartment complex to go do that for her because she, it's not that she can't figure it out. She doesn't want to try to figure it out. But then again, this is also the lady that gets amazed by the most kind of mundane things. Like, I have spice jars that are refrigerator magnets. They just stuck to the refrigerator, and she's just fascinated by them.
That's fancy. I've never seen that before.
Can't tell if you're joking or not.
No, seriously, I've never seen those before.
Well, I guess I'll have to take
Like,
a picture
anywhere.
later.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I can picture it in my mind. Like, it's pretty neat. Never seen those anywhere before. Never thought about doing that. We had like a clip-on spice rack we hung over our pantry door at our old place. That was pretty cool.
Well, I have one spice rack that's attached with magnets to the back of the hood above the stove, and then I have the refrigerator magnets ones, which I'm going to get another set of.
Those would be nice for like the most common spices that you use. They're like right there. It's like grab your ingredients out of the
Well,
fridge.
it also depends
grab
on
your 2 or 3 most used spices.
It also
good to
depends
go.
on what I get in bulk. So like my smoked paprika's on there, which I got in bulk, or my red chili flakes, or like 5 different types of salt. And no, I'm not joking.
Welcome to the cooking portion of the podcast.
Sorry.
But anyways, yeah. Where else do we want to go with this article?
Well, it's more, I think, just how phones have grown, but have kind of grown around gaming instead of making it the core focus, but still, it's the biggest cash cow. I mean, we haven't seen that big a growth in gaming in hours spent as a comparison to the previous years, but it's more the rise of social media. I mean, did they say actual percentage on that? I'm not seeing it, but yeah, it's a fairly substantial chunk of social media and just communication in general.
I'm looking. I don't see any percentages for that.
But when, I guess percentage-wise, it's close to the same, but it's just less of a focus with video. It's video that's really grown. I mean, look at the hours. But it's also, you have Netflix coming in a lot more. You have the mobile networks offering more data at a faster rate without absolutely gouging you half the time, at least in the U.S. You have places that set up Wi-Fi hotspots for their customers now a lot more often than you did a few years ago, where you don't have to worry about using your mobile data, so you could sit at a restaurant and watch an episode of something, or check out YouTube while you eat, or just cool off. So maybe that's the reason why we're seeing just a growth on video. It's not one particular thing. It's just kind of a combination of more accessible data, faster speeds overall, kind of a general acceptance of YouTube, a growth of the various subscription models, Netflix, Amazon Prime becoming a lot more common compared to 2015, 2016. And the fact that there's just so many Wi-Fi hotspots in restaurants.
Yeah. There's also a growing percentage of the population. I don't know how rapidly it's growing, but I've noticed in the last year, just because, I talk to a lot of people. It's kind of my job. That don't have a lot of, that don't have TVs, or that might not even have a computer. It's like,
I mean, I have a TV
I've got my...
and I have basic cable, but that's what's included with the apartment. I don't absolutely subscribe to cable.
Yeah, but I know actually a couple of people that I work with that live in small apartments, and they say they don't have room for a TV. They've got their laptop and their phone, or I know one girl that has a tablet and her phone, and tablets and phones both count as mobile devices. So she would only, everything she consumes is on one of those two devices. So everything she does is 100% in the mobile category. And I suspect there's a lot more people that are in that sort of growing demographic than I realize, because I am someone who does, multiple computers and monitors, and we have TVs in the house, and we consume a lot of media that way. We don't actually have cable or satellite or anything. We do everything 100% online, but I don't think that those devices count. I don't think my the Xbox in the living room, which is basically the Netflix box, counts as a mobile device.
Also, it makes me wonder how the count. I mean, I don't have this particular app that they use for the data, but the thing is, like, in the morning while I'm having breakfast and my coffee, after I listen to the morning news on my Echo Dot, I'll queue up, a good chunk of video content on YouTube from my phone casting to my TV. So would that count as video content on my phone because I'm using my smart TV to do it? Probably.
Interesting. Probably, yeah. I mean, you're using your mobile device as the keystone of that, cornerstone of that. You know, the progenitor of that. It's a good question, but I would suspect that it would count.
So, yeah, maybe it's also smart devices just in general, because I can't imagine, I'm a minority on that.
No.
Because casting YouTube to a smart TV is pretty simple. It's just one button.
Yeah. I don't do much casting, but it's because I have like 4,600 million PCs in my house connected to everything imaginable. So it's just anything I want to do, I can use one of my, use a media PC for. And in some ways that is longer and takes more time, but in other ways it's faster and, I have certain additional flexibility. But that's probably the next thing, doing more casting in certain places in the house, like in our bedroom. Probably in my kid's room whenever he gets old enough to have a TV in there. That's a scary thought. It's like, I get it. Like, I'm old. I'm becoming a parent who's scared of things that his child is going to do with technology. Thankfully, at least from a technological sense, like, it will take a while before he passes me.
But when he does...
Yeah. When it comes to, like, Katie and her sort of technical knowledge of stuff, like, her and King are pretty much on the same level. He struggles to use a keyboard and mouse because he's learning how to read. Like, he knows all of his letters, but he doesn't, he can't type or anything like that. So he struggles with that. But, like, you give him a phone or a tablet or...
Someone needs to be maybe speaking.
Yeah. His hands are still too small. He's just a little bit too small. He's getting there. But, or you give him a controller of some kind, and he's good to go. So, if he ever, or when he catches up to my knowledge, if he's interested in that sort of thing at all, then we'll be in trouble.
Get the FBI knocking on the door. King, you've been hacking into the Pentagon again?
God damn it, son. But yeah. Fun times.
So, speaking of kids and the internet?
Yes. Dude, I don't understand how that's a segue.
83%.
Oh, never mind. I looked at the wrong one. 83% of gamers potentially are interested in streaming services. So when we say streaming services, we mean Google Stadia and some of the others. What's the Ubisoft thing that they announced? Was it Ubisoft? No, it was Bethesda.
I'm not sure. I kind of glazed over with Bethesda. But Bethesda, it was an engine thing, and that was more for streamers, as in broadcasters onto Twitch, as far as I could understand. They kind of went into the realm of a lot of technical mumbo jumbo, but things like, I would imagine Sony casting, from PlayStation would also sort of count if you do it remotely, but also Steam. Yeah.
They mentioned on here specifically
Stadia
and Project Cloud, or Project X Cloud, which is Microsoft's
thing.
Yeah,
because Stadia is like the new hotness right now. But also, the interesting portion of this is of the 83%, what was it, 20-some, doesn't have an internet connection strong enough to be able to get the throughput.
Yeah.
For the bare minimum that Stadia requires, which let's see, I'm trying to find on here. Google has previously stated players will be best served on Stadia with a 35 megabit connection, which will deliver 4K streaming at 60 FPS. So that's the minimum requirement or sorry, that's the best serve. That's the recommended, with the minimum being 10 megabits for 1080p. With Google warning this will be scaled down to 720p on slower connections. Now, they said that on this, the study conducted said that below... sorry, I'm scrolling. Down to the speed test results. So up to 10 is 7%. So 7% that were interested in this and did the speed test out of it right immediately. Now that's assuming, of course, that they're doing it on the computer that they were planning on doing it on, or whatever device. With another 10% being in the 10 to 20 megabit range, another 12% being in the 20 to 35, and 71% being 35 megabits plus. And the interesting thing is that the FCC has the definition of broadband to be 25 megs down and 3 up. So that's rather telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Either people don't understand the speed requirements of these, or how just overall demanding it's going to be, because, well, you mentioned it in our pre-show banter, is that this does not have buffering in it the way video does. So if you have an unstable connection, one that has a lot of jitter, which jitter is by definition a unstable connection. It's the amount of change in a number of pings. So if you ping a server and you get 10 ping back, that's your baseline. Then you send another ping and you get another 10. You have a jitter of 0. You send another one and you get an 11. Well, you have a jitter of 1 now. And the higher the jitter, the more likely you are that you're going to have an unstable connection. And that's not measured here at all. We don't know how strong these connections are or how reliable these connections are.
Yeah. With my specific recent internet problems, like I've got 110, which, well beyond what they, are asking for as the base. And I won't run into another issue that I'll talk about in a second, which is like, a little bit more deeply, having multiple people using the internet at the same time. But, even just a quick drop, 4 or 5 seconds of dropout time is enough to completely sever the stream and ruin, your entire experience and kick you out. If you're streaming video, YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, whatever, there's some buffer built in. So if your connection drops for a few seconds, you're probably not likely to notice it. It'll just, go through the buffer, pick back up where it was, and keep going on. But you can't do that with a game because you need consistent, constant input. So, I don't know how they're going to handle that. And that happens even if you've got typically a perfectly 100% stable connection. That could happen for a million reasons that have nothing to do with any of your own equipment. And then you could be dropped out of your experience. So I don't know how they're going to handle that. Then the other issue is I would assume that this is only considering using a single computer or device on the network. But as soon as you introduce multiple devices, or if you're trying to do this wirelessly with other multiple devices, you're going to hit huge issues. If everyone is wired, the problem is not quite as bad because it's not equally cutting down internet usage. Like if someone is streaming or, is watching YouTube, they're not going to be eating as much bandwidth as someone watching like 4K streams on Netflix or whatever. So as long as you've got a fast enough connection, you wouldn't have to worry about it too much. Like maybe 50 megs would probably be enough in that situation. But if you're doing it wirelessly, which I suspect a lot of people would be, like me and you and a lot of the people in our audience are a little bit more on the, enthusiast side where we try to have more wired connections and things like that for stability and increased speed and whatnot. But as soon as you start introducing multiple wired devices on the same network, you start having massive speed drops just because of the way that wireless routers handle incoming and outgoing packets. So I won't get too technical on it, the details too much, but essentially for every device you add on a wireless network that is communicating at the same time, you cut the speed by more than half because you start running into packet collision from the wireless signals coming in and going back out. So there's a certain amount of buffer that has to be put into the system. So let's say you've got a 100 meg connection and a wireless router that can handle 100 megabits transfer. As soon as you put two devices on that network at the same time doing something at the same time, your overall connection speed is not 50 per device, but 25 per device, because you have to have the extra buffer for packet collision and packet loss. So, in my household, there are, let me think, if everybody's doing stuff at once, there's my phone, Katie's phone, King's tablet, Katie's laptop, and potentially my laptop. So my 100 meg connection, if everybody's got something going on at the same time that's a wireless device, could be cut down to like 1.2 available megabits per second per device, if I'm doing my quick math right. So if you're doing this wirelessly, you run into a whole host of other issues that this is not taking into consideration. I think I kept that pretty understandable.
Yeah, I'm looking here at the actual survey, and there's some interesting things here. So I would say gamesindustry.biz is doing a little bit of clickbaity on the 83%, because there are 45% that says possibly, but it's dependent on other factors. So I didn't click through and looked at that. I was looking at the speed test before, so that is an interesting thing. But still, that's quite a substantial chunk. 21% absolutely, and 17% yes, probably. So not quite half, but close enough, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'm interested in game streaming. I don't know.
I think it depends
really
on if they
on...
do a subscription model similar to what Xbox X Pass is doing, or Xbox Game Pass is doing.
Yeah.
But the way Stadia has it is that it's a pretty expensive subscription service. But let's just go through this, because there's only 17% that says no, I would not be interested. So hey, you're in the minority essentially. Actually, the yes absolutely, the yes probably and no I would be interested are the same percentage. So that's an interesting mirror, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I'm absolutely never, gonna use it, but I'm probably not.
Let's see, do you have any concerns or feel there will be any drawbacks to a gaming streaming service such as Google Stadia? Let's see, the biggest concern is I think the performance or visual quality will be compromised, followed by, I'd like to purchase a tangible product, which is strange. That's 34% of replies. I don't think streaming will work for the types of games I play is 26% tied with, I don't think my broadband could handle game streaming. And then I don't think they would be able to secure the games I want to play. So library issues. And only 1% said, I don't think the controls will work on mobile devices. With 6% saying other.
That's certainly part of it. I don't think the controls would work on mobile devices, but I mean, you can find games that do that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just a combination of personally how I like to consume games, and my, this being my primary hobby. I'm fully equipped to handle a wide range of games on multiple devices with a better experience than I could probably get with streaming. So my use of streaming at this point would be like, well, if it's included with this other thing that I've got, when I talked about, or when they first announced Stadia, I said something along the lines of like, well, they've got their sort of Google Family service, which includes like YouTube Red and their Music Pass and all the other stuff. Like if it gets rolled into that, I'd probably use it some just because it was there, but I don't think I would go out of my way to purchase it separately.
Okay, where the hell did they find these people? Sorry, I'm still doing a little bit of a deeper dive. According to this, 49% of the connection types is fiber optic.
They're probably surveying a lot of people in
more
high population areas, not necessarily cities, but places with higher population density.
With 20% saying ADSL, which is asymmetric digital subscriber line, essentially combining DSL and cable modems.
Yeah.
2% saying 4G. Another 22% says Virgin Media Fiber. With 5% saying, I'm not sure what type of broadband connection I have. That's a little concerning, but okay. And 2% saying other.
How many said that they didn't know?
5%.
What type of connection they had? That's actually a lot lower than I thought it would be. Although maybe it would be in the general public.
Or do you think they may have just said fiber optic thinking cable modem?
They might have done that. Or people might have said cable thinking of something else too, like cable modem thinking of something else.
Yeah, because I had to sit and think
know.
ADSL for a moment.
Yeah. My parents call everything a router. Everything's a router.
Oh, so like how growing
right?
up it was everything was a Nintendo?
Yeah, everything's a Nintendo. No, everything's a router to them. I gave up trying to correct them a long time ago. It's not worth it.
But yeah, it seems like game streaming is a lot more... the general population is a lot more interested in it than we kind of gave it credit for. It'll be...
I don't know.
Well, I thought that there would be some interest, but 50%... well, not quite 50%, but nearly half saying yes or yes, probably, is a lot more than I was expecting. With some sort of yes, but being up to 83%.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly pretty on track with my expectations. I have said multiple times, like, this is the way that it's going for the mainstream industry, and the question is, how fast do we get there?
Well, you need at least 10 megabits per
it.
second, but they recommend 35.
Yeah.
And obviously that joke just fell flat.
Yeah, it did. I'm looking... I know that the average connection speed in the United States has gone up in the last
AOL is losing
years.
subscribers, I'm assuming. They're dying off. Let's see, 18.7. So the average person would be able to use it, but not hit the 4K. But 4K is future proof.
I think I saw a more recent survey recently that said that it was higher than that. How old is the data that you're looking at?
Let's see. This is fixed broadband speed data test quarter 3 2018.
Okay.
This one the quick Google one was last year. I'm scrolling through this year's this last year's.
So here's something that I think that I saw, because it says speed test, which, I think normal everyday people aren't using speed test or ranking.
Let's see, West Virginia,
the US
86.32 down, 14.85 up. Tennessee, 100.13 up, 49.73 down. Oh, sorry, 40
EPB fiber optic.
Sorry, 49.73 up, 11 down. I got them backwards because I was... Let's see. Ooh. The low end is like a middle of nowhere, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. They're all above 50, so that's something. Alaska, 80.9 down, 21.4 up average. Texas and... hang on, who has the best? Because there's a 121 out there somewhere. Maryland has 117.5 down and 63.404 up. So we found where we want to live.
Let's see. I'm just looking at some stuff. According to this article from Vox, U.S. internet speed.
Never mind. We don't want to go where it's fast internet.
Why?
It's New Jersey.
I'm okay with that.
121.45 down, 56.5 up. So pretty much everywhere is having close to the same, as long as it's just not absolutely terrible uploads. Its downloads are varying quite a bit.
Yeah.
West Virginia's just terrible, though.
All right.
But then again, West Virginia also has a lot of people that use satellite connections because there's a lot of areas that just you cannot access broadband or even reasonably do phone because you would hit a long, either long distance doing dial up, which actually, when I was little, doing dial up modem, it put in the wrong data center, so I was calling the wrong one and racked up a little bit of long distance. Not crazy amounts, but my mom wasn't happy at the time. It was essentially the other side of the city that was just over the distance marker.
Yeah.
So it was like tier 1 or the first tier or whatever. Yeah, back when long distance was actually a thing in the same country. That's another thing that's gone away, huh?
Yeah. I've never dealt with that. Young enough to have never dealt with it.
Get off my fucking lawn.
Okie dokie. We have got enough time for essentially one more thing plus Jim's article, maybe two more things if
so which
stuff
one
goes
do you
fast
want?
enough. You mean news article or Discovery Queue?
Well, let's do news article first, and we'll figure it out.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll just go ahead and go next in the list. So, Square Enix has no idea how many parts Final Fantasy VII Remake will have.
How do you not have any idea? That's what I don't get.
Yeah, so the first game, I'm doing air quotes because of Final Fantasy VII, the first game in this remake is, what's the opening city? I'm
Midgar.
a huge blank right now. I don't have Midgar. Is the Midgar portion from
disc 1,
the first disc?
Essentially,
disc 1.
I would say about a quarter or a third of disc 1 is Midgar in the original game. So they're expanding it out, which we knew they were expanding it to be its full game. Or after they talked about it, they said before that they were expanding the story, but the fact that they don't know how many parts there are, that's troubling. They're going full Star Citizen.
Yeah, if they were like, well, if this works out the way we've intended it to, it'll be X number of parts, 5, 4, 5, 6, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just like, we have planned to have this many if things work out mostly the way we intend. But they're like, we don't know. Fuck it. We don't know. There's a thing from Jason Schreier here on the Tech Raptor, or a tweet from Jason Schreier on the Tech Raptor article that says, he asked Yoshinori Kitase how many games are going to be in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. He said, I can't say yet because, quote, we don't know ourselves, end quote.
Which, like I said, is troubling. I understand, Final Fantasy VII, when you sit down and think about it, has some head scratchers on its story, some plot holes or things that could have been fleshed out a lot more. But expanding it to the point where they don't even know how many games they're going to have in the complete Final Fantasy series or Final Fantasy VII series or whatever you want to call this. It's just so weird. So we're back to my morbid curiosity paying off, I guess.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing is, are they going to go full Kingdom Hearts where they start doing side stories as well?
That would be weird.
Because
for Final Fantasy VII.
Because
that story's already been told.
Final Fantasy VII's already kind of done this, actually.
Yeah, because they've had the spin-off movie.
No,
movies.
No, not just that. There was a game that had Vincent in it that told his backstory. And it was a completely different
I know what
one,
you're talking about.
Or a different type of game. It was like a shooter. And now I'm having to look it up. It was Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII. It's like a Devil May Cry shooter. So, yeah, they've already kind of have the precedent for this down. the precedent. But yeah, this makes me kind of concerned that they're going full Final Fantasy, or Final Fantasy VII is going full Kingdom Hearts, where we're going to see, the series go over the course of like 20 years. And there's going to be side stories. Okay, Vincent's going to get his game. Then we'll have Sid Highwind get his adults-only game because he's cussing so damn much.
Yeah.
Plus, he's also smoking a cigarette the entire time. But that also made me kind of realize, so we're only going to get the initial 4 or 5 characters?
Yeah. And only like a bare introduction to the overall story.
Assuming, well, it's also, what do they add?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I am not opposed to going back and retelling stories, changing things, all that jazz.
As long as you don't go full George Lucas.
Yeah. I just am not sure what they can do.
Can do without
like, I don't
ruining
mean that...
the pacing of it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't mean that in a sense of like, well, I don't know what they can do. Like, that story's perfect. Like, I think all stories have room for improvements in one way or another, But I just don't know because they've told the story, multiple additions to it. It's complete. So many people have an expectation of what the story is. I'm just not sure where they can go with it and tell a satisfying narrative. Because, I mean, you can make shit up all day, but at the end of the day, it needs to be satisfying. And I would
say it needs to be cohesive.
Yeah. They've got a huge, though, like, sort of burden to get this right, because Final Fantasy VII is the darling of the Final Fantasy series and also one of the most, I think, beloved games in history, like, of all time.
It's kind of the breakout title for JRPGs in the West. I realized there were a couple fairly sizable ones before it, but Final Fantasy VII, I think, was the one that kind of broke into the mainstream. It's the one that I remember seeing commercials for first. But also, it was starting to get to the point where actual gameplay graphics wasn't good enough to show on commercials, but the cutscenes were that they were attention-grabbing.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, is that Final Fantasy VII hit at like the perfect time that its cutscenes were just stunning. So coming back to it now and seeing, the progression of the character models from, like 12 triangles or with Cloud, like 20 triangles because you have to include the spiky hair.
Yeah.
To modern, almost film quality CGI for playable characters is quite the elite palm.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder, how are they going to, do other games in this series quickly enough where they, are still in kind of like the collective memory that people don't have to go back and look at, okay, what happened to the last game? Because they talked about how long the first game was going to be. They said, what was it, like 2 Blu-rays?
Yeah, I think so.
That's not a short game.
No, I mean, that's essentially nearly 100 gigs worth of data. I think a Blu-ray, like a double density Blu-ray, can hold around 50 gigs. Which, a lot of that could be uncompressed audio or video or texture files or whatever, but...
Well, it also depends on what type, because Blu-ray disk capacities jumped to 100 gigs. Okay. And this was 2010, so with triple layering. So... single...
Double layer Blu-ray discs are 50.
Yeah. So, there's definitely a lot of data there.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure how interested I am in it. Again, not because I think it's going to be bad, but...
Like I said, it's a morbid curiosity. Just because Final Fantasy VII was one of the first games that I remember, the JRPGs coming out into the mainstream. I did play through Final Fantasy VII So yeah, I do have a little bit of nostalgia for it, but not nearly as much as some other people my age.
Yeah.
But it's just that curiosity of what they're doing with it, especially since they're expanding the story so much. And, how much are they going to change things for modern sensibilities? Because, there's an entire sequence where Cloud cross-dresses. Well, how they have Cloud looking now, he doesn't... that's going to be weird, right?
Yeah. I doubt it'll ever happen. Because Final Fantasy VIII is kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the Final Fantasy
I would
games,
say that's actually
not. I mean, there's a rumor that the reason that Final Fantasy VIII didn't get re-released in that like pack that they recently did
because they lost the source code.
Was because they lost the source code. I mean, I think more people like 9 than 8.
Well, 8
I don't know. Maybe I'm just in a little bit of a bubble.
8 has a weird magic mechanic, but 9 also goes back to the to the fantasy setting. So the people that played 7 and 8 that got used to the either sci-fi or diesel punk, for lack of a better term, for Final Fantasy 7. I mean, I guess it's still sci-fi, but it's a lot more gritty. It's Star Wars versus Star Trek sci-fi flavors.
Yeah.
Going to Final Fantasy 9 and seeing castles and princesses and everything, it's a little bit jarring. But also, Final Fantasy 9 was the last one on the PlayStation, which people that bought into the PlayStation 2 early pretty much just waited for 10.
Yeah. I like 10.
10 was okay. It has gotten a bad rep because the voice acting was subpar. And some rather cringy scenes that really didn't translate all that well. And also some scenes that the translators changed the meaning a fair bit. Which, looking at some of the people talking about the changes in translations, it's rather interesting just how much they changed Final Fantasy X to accommodate the lip flap, the talking motion. Not to say that the other Final Fantasies haven't had changes in translation as well, but it had a certain meaning. I mean, Final Fantasy X is the first time one character declares outright love for another. I mean, it's implied in the others, but it's not stated because that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned Final Fantasy VIII real quick. Final Fantasy IX, the reason why the recent remaster looks so shit, well, I should say the backgrounds compared to the character models, is that they lost the data files for the high-res versions of those. So they had the desampled ones. Supposedly, there's a AI remaster where they, the AI resolution change, which I need to look into because that would be interesting to go back to. But yeah, Square Enix hasn't been good about keeping their data files, have they?
We'll head on over to Community Corner this week where we got something from Jim. He mentioned this to us last night during Community Game Night, which we said we played Forza Horizon 4 for a couple hours. And he asked us if we saw this thing called Hot Swap at E3. And neither of us did. So he sent us a link to their website through Discord. And it's an interesting controller concept. I don't know specifically if they're going for this is like, this is very gimmicky. It's a controller that works in conjunction with a game where that you and another player are swapping out different buttons on the controller that each do different things. It's like a pirate ship game. And so like, there's a button to reload your cannons, a button to shoot them, a button that raises and lowers the sails, a button that steers, and you swap these back and forth with your partner because one of you is on the port side and the other's on the starboard side of the ship. And certain actions need to be performed on each side of the ship at a time. So you're swapping out these physical buttons between the controllers rapidly, trying to destroy incoming ships. So that idea for that game is pretty neat looking. Although it's more of just a test, sort of proof of concept, if I'm understanding correctly. But the question is, like, what are they intending to do with this besides just like a, admittedly a fun-looking but still very gimmicky game idea?
Yeah, the controls that they have look like they're more suited in a... I don't mean this as in a dismissive way, but for toddlers and young children. Because one is just a giant button, another one is just a giant, almost mad scientist-like switch. One is a steering wheel to steer the ship. And I'm blanking on what the other one is.
The other one is like a crank that raises and lowers
crank.
the sails, and you have to turn it.
So, they feel very tactile. So that, it feels like it's more meant for younger kids. Or perhaps, depending on how they build it. Because everything, looks like it's, 3D printed. There's a lot of, just beige color, Maybe this could be a disability accessible controller eventually.
Yeah, the little blurb on their site says, "What if game controls were infinitely reconfigurable? How would that change the way that we develop digital games? This work explores a mechanism for hot swapping physical inputs on a game controller. In this iteration, we showcase a prototype controller for a game that requires the player to reconfigure its inputs during gameplay." So, this is a prototype, sort of a proof of concept, but I'm interested to see where this sort of thing could go for a number of reasons. I mean, like you just said, potentially for disability or people with disabilities. There are some neat gameplay mechanics you could put into it. This thing that they're demoing does feel very gimmicky, but depending on the type of controller or what type of experience you're trying to have, it could potentially be part of a VR or an AR setup or something like that. Or you could just generally use it to develop maybe some specific puzzle games or things that utilize these mechanics in particular, or this input in particular. It's one of my favorite things about games is it's so much about the experience comes from the control input. And, we've seen this multiple times. Like, you take the exact same game, you play it on a PC, you play it on a console, you play it on a mobile device, like Fortnite or PUBG, for example. You get 3 distinctly different experiences, despite the game being exactly the same, because of differences native to the control input. So, it's an interesting idea. I just don't know, outside of some disability stuff or a few gimmicky things, what they could do with it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have any applications. Lots of stuff that we don't realize could be big becomes big. I'm sure 20 years ago, people thought that Apple was crazy for making a smartphone, but, look at where we are today. We had this conversation earlier about how billions of people around the world have smartphones and use them for everything. Mm-hmm. But 20 years ago, you wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, and this reminds me of a gamepad that I used to have that could swap between Xbox and PlayStation configurations. And I actually found the keyboard I was thinking of ages ago. Looks like it has some very mixed reviews and it's been discontinued. But the Ergodex DX1 input system. I'm going to link you a Amazon page for it because there's not much here. Actually, hang on, eBay may have one. Yeah, it's old as hell, but it's the same basic idea, only it's all keyboard keys, but it's completely custom placement, and the keys are like switches or RFID tags or something that is picked up by the device that is registered as a proper key press. But the thing is that
that's interesting.
It's one of those oddball things that I've seen over the years that I remember. So this sort of swappable, completely custom idea has been out there for quite a while. The DX1 came out in 2004, according to one of the sites I just found. So it's been this dream has been chased for a while. It's just can they make it worthwhile is probably not the right way to put it, but make it consumer friendly, because the DX1 was like a $200 some keyboard in 2004. Back when nobody was spending that much on a keyboard, right? Especially when that came with 6 keys.
Well, a big difference between this.
Yeah, I know. This is
the hot swap.
This is just
a
computer or keyboard keys instead of having it where you could have pretty much anything as long as it fits in the slot. As a more tactile feel to it. But I was just saying that I've seen stuff like this before, similar to it, or a similar basic idea of consumer reconfigurable keyboards or controllers. It's just, it's kind of funny. I think Geek is one of the sites that keeps popping up for it, but that site's going away before long.
Yeah. I saw that.
But yeah, I was just saying that, I've seen this before, and it's a very interesting thing. I hope that somebody's able to pull it off to the point where, seeing games become a more broad option, more, different experiences, which I've realized I've nagged on VR for its experience-focused gameplay, even though that's slowly changing. But having some sort of more accessible controller for people that can't quite use a keyboard and mouse. Gee, I wonder if there's someone like that we've talked about in this very episode, right?
Yeah, I wonder. Like, this looks fun. Like, I'm rewatching the video. Like, this does look like a very fun experience. Limited, but fun. But, as a proof of concept, it's
the
neat.
other thing I could see
it's a neat idea.
As is a party game.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember Magic Maze that I showed you a while back? Imagine Magic Maze only, you have different people with the different parts of the controller that swap it around. Where, sort of like how they have it there, only instead of 2 people, it's like 3 or 4 with different very basic movements. Like one person's only able to turn left, the other one's only able to turn right. One's only able to raise the sails, the other one drops them. That's how Magic Maze works, and it's almost a chess-like Zen thing going on when it's done well.
Yeah.
Of course, somebody's going to have a bell that is do something. I definitely could see. I definitely could see it as a party game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Especially if they develop it beyond a basic sailing game to. Oh, can you imagine something like a this is going to sound dismissive, but a low-rent Artemis bridge simulator?
No, that would be fun.
Oh, like, well, I was saying, it sounds like I'm dismissing it saying low rent, but, a very basic version.
Right. But that could add to the charm of it as well. How can you turn that into something that enhances the experience rather than just making it seem cheap? But yeah, I think that would be good.
Especially if they have it like a smartphone app that's able to cast to a smart TV.
Yeah. I wonder, just looking at something like this does make me think of things like Pong. Like, and I'm not comparing this to Pong. I have no idea if this will evolve into, its own branch of the gaming industry or chain. I don't know where it's going to go, but looking at this makes me think of Pong. Like, it's kind of silly. It's really basic in terms of, like, what it can do. But if it's the right spark, you never know where it could go. I like it. I like seeing creativity and originality in pretty much any form that it takes. So I think overall this is a neat thing that's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine different ways to take it. I don't want to dismiss it immediately saying, oh, well, this is a kid thing just because of the package that they chose to show it off in. Right. So I think party game would actually be a very interesting place to take it. Yeah.
If you could buy, I don't know what the cost involved with it would be, but if you could buy, $30, I mean, that's what a lot of, board games cost, is about $30. It'd be perfect for that.
especially if they do expansions where, it's another piece that has like some sort of other function. It's also, I assume each part has some sort of circuitry into it, saying what it is exactly, because there has to be some sort of
identification. Yeah, because they're all using the same connector. Yeah, it's like,
it looks like for lack of a better term, like an AMD processor connector. All of them have a set of pins on the bottom that plug in, which does make me a little concerned about just how durable it would be in the long run.
Well,
I mean, you could change the connector to be more robust.
Yeah, you could just use something more that's just contacts instead of pins.
Contacts. Essentially, the Intel model. Just make sure that they have the indent. Make it where you could quickly swap them. Have it like a rectangle or some sort of oblong shape so that it could only fit in one way. Especially if it does look like they're trying to do more of a party game aspect to it, of going back and forth.
Yeah. They don't seem to be having any issues plugging them up or unplugging them.
Yeah, but remember, this is also, the developer video of it.
That's true.
So it's true. Like judging a game by its E3 trailer. This is true. Best possible conditions, probably heavily edited. And also people that know what the hell they're doing with it. Now give it to somebody that's never seen it before and watch them struggle. Just remember, as soon as you think something is idiot-proof, the universe creates a better idiot.
Oh, don't I know it?
Know it. You make a career out of it.
I do indeed. It's all right, though. I love all... Well, that's not true. I was going to say I love all of my idiots. That's not true. I love lots of them, though.
At least a portion.
Indeed. I don't really think I have anything else to add.
I mean, it looks very neat. And it does make me wonder, just what their goal for it is. Because I do see several different options that they could use it for. But it's not what I think they could do with it. It's what they think they could do with it. And if they could do something feasible with it.
Yeah.
Or did they get beat to the punch by, like Nintendo? Oh, can you imagine, like, the Labo doing something like this?
That would be interesting. So the cardboard fell apart.
Well, see, they get the fancy laminated cardboard. They get the poster board out. The thick poster board,
Yeah.
They pay the extra $1.
The glossy poster board. Yeah. Sweet. Well.
Do you want to? I was going
to
say, if you wish to contribute to the community corner, you could do so by sending it to vglpodcast@gmail.com. Actually, I didn't check the email this week. Did you?
Nope.
Whoops. I got caught up. I promise this is a rare occurrence that we don't check the email. We check it every week and laugh at all the spam we get.
No emails.
No emails. Phew.
No emails that aren't spam.
Yeah, I mean, we do have the usual Japanese stuff in the... Oh, and we have a proposal. Ooh, a proposal. Be saving that one for later. But if you wish to contribute to this absolute madness, you can do so at vglpodcast@gmail.com. Tweet to us, VGL Podcast, on the Twitter. Or you can also send it to our Discord, which there is a link on our page, VGLpodcast.podbean.com. Because it's a lot easier than trying to remember what the Discord actual link is.
Indeed. I guess you could go ahead and hit him with those socials, Rach.
Well, I was taking a sip of my tea, trying to keep my voice from completely dying. But I have been Caffeine Rage, even though I am drinking caffeine-free tea. But that does make me angry. But you can find me over on the YouTubes, Gaming with Caffeine Rage. You can find me on Twitter, Gaming with Sqaure, and maybe someday you'll find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/caffeine_rage. And you've been?
Gaming Psychologist. You can find me on the YouTubes by searching for Gaming Psychologist, on Twitter at JMA4707, or you can always send a friend request to me on Steam to JArthur4707. Chat with me about whatever, whenever. We're meant to be together.
And if you wish to
I'll
let me
be
know
here, and you'll be
exactly
near.
what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is Vroom. Vroom.
Vroom, vroom.
Vroom, vroom, vroom.
That's the deal, my dear. There, I had to finish that. I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry.
Well, I didn't even hear you, so it doesn't matter. But what does matter is, once again, our email is vglpodcast@gmail.com with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics. Or you can just tweet them to VGL Podcast. Our lovely, lovely patrons have helped made this absolute madness happen. You can find out more at patreon.com/VGL Podcast. Our patrons have also made our Podbean account possible. VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which hosts the show notes, the RSS feed, links to all our content. Or you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcatcher of choice. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod. You can find his work at incomputate.com. And
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice, bye-bye now.
see you next time.
Bye-bye.